Settle in. This is a quiet evening walk through Germany. Half-timbered houses along cobbled market squares, slow barges on the Rhine, and the patient swing of canal locks. A small press in Mainz, where type meets paper, and a page calls on a rack. Black forest benches, where hands file brass gears, and set a beat, and the tidy S-bomb platform, where a timetable turns light into minutes. Well, move slowly, no arguments, no loud music, no sudden cuts, just a steady voice and a gentle bed of sound. If sleep arrives, that's the plan. When you wake, the story will be right where you left it. The first part. Mainz, late 15th century. Evening in a small print room. We set the lamp, trim the wick, and clear the bench. Air from the river cools the sill. The wood floor holds a dry, hollow note. This is the composing bench in Mainz. The letter case stands open, upper box above, lower below. That habit gives the names, upper case and lower case. Fingers learn the mat by reach, not sight. E and T close, A and N near. Capitals sit higher, slightly heavier in the hand. The composing stick, a metal cradle for a line, waits on the wood. We wipe the stick with a rag that smells of oil and ash. A brass rule checks the measure. The first line begins with quiet words. Small spaces slide in where breath needs room. Each piece goes beard to the front, neck to the left. The thumb feels the neck and knows the face. This is the rhythm of setting type. Lift, set, press to the shoulder. The stick grows heavier, then light again. We slide the finished line onto the galley. A flat tray with a cool touch. The seam between lines must be even. A thumb tests for a proud letter. A low one will fade, a high one will bite. A proof slip waits near the edge. It carries yesterday's ink like a soft mirror. The bone folder, a smooth tool for creasing, keeps its edge square. A small square of tissue sits ready to pack under a shy sort. A shy sort is a letter that prints to light. A shim brings it level. This is the anchor of the room, the lamp. Its circle of light holds the work. The rest of the shop falls into warm shade. The flame makes a sound like someone thinking. We keep the glass clean. Soot dulls judgment and image. Outside, a wheel thumps once on a seam in the lane. The rope on the rim saves the wood and the piece. Inside, the apprentice wipes the bench top with steady strokes. He lifts the tri-square. He sets it down without clack. He's learning the weight of quiet. This is the imposing stone. The stone is flat and patient. A form grows here, letter by letter, line by line. The chase, a rectangle of iron, lies open. Wooden furniture, plain blocks, fill the edges. A coin, a wedge, slides into a corner. The key finds it and turns. The frame tightens without fuss. We check the margins, head, tail, inner, outer. The inner leaves room for the sou. The outer leaves room for a thumb. A bookmark will live there without slipping. The top must breathe, the bottom must settle. Each page earns its frame by small decisions. We lift the form and run a fingertip around the border. A single high letter can break a run. A low one can hollow a word. A tiny plane kisses a proud edge. The shaving rolls into a curl like grey grass. We save the curl in a jar. Nothing sharp goes to waste. This is the inking table. 2 ink balls wait on a board. They are leather pads stuffed with wool. Pigment and boiled linseed oil make the varnish. We work the mix until it strings from the knife. Then we break the string with the knife and fold it back. The shine is slow and even, not wet. We tap the ink balls together, lift, meet, and lift again. The sound is soft, like a hand closing on wool. We do not hurry. Ink forgives patience, not haste. When the surface looks like night press thin, we are ready. This is the frisket and tympan. The frisket is a paper mask that guards the blank margins. The tympan is a taut sheet that holds the paper. They hinge together and fold over the form. We test the hinge for play. We clean the pins that align the sheet. The gauge points, small iron stops, promise the same position each pull. The press stands ready. It is a wooden common press, a screw and a platen, simple and proven. The bar waits at the height of a shoulder. The ribs in the frame show where hands have lived. We set the carriage. We draw it under the platen. We lay a dampened sheet square to the pins. This is the first inking pass of the evening. The ink balls walk across the form, forward, back, crosswise, then a feather lift. The touch is light and full. No corner is starved. No letter shines dry. We close the frisket and the tympan. The sheet lies calm, ready. The bar comes down. A smooth arc. The screw turns without complaint. The platen meets its work, flat to flat. Pressure moves through wood and iron, then into paper and type. It is a slow push, then a slow release. The bar rises. The tympan opens. We lift the sheet by one corner. The page looks back with a calm, even shine. It will dry to a matte. Right now it holds a small gloss. The impression is even. The serif stands clean. The hairline does not break. We hang the sheet on a cord with 2 wooden pegs. Air moves near the door. The page shifts the width of a breath. This is the drying rack, today's skyline. Yesterday's run hangs behind it, margin against margin. A slip of paper marks the counts and the hour. A brass weight keeps the note from slipping. We write in the ledger. Date, form, count, first pull, last pull. The line must be clear and short. A tired line lies by morning like a shaken shelf. The apprentice brings a bundle of paper from the chest. He weighs it on the beam scale. The pans sit level. The brass slider stops at the mark. The beam tells the truth by balance. We record the weight. The stack warms under a board to take damp evenly. This is the casting shelf, quiet tonight. A crucible sleeps in a cradle of ash. Tight metal weights in small ingots. Lead for body. Tin and antimony for strength and edge. The mold, a hinge tool, rests wrapped in cloth. When it wakes, we will pour, cut, and break the jet. Not tonight. Tonight belongs to setting and pull. We return to the case. The stick bites the same measure, 30 pica. Hands fall into a path. Pick A, set A. Pick N, set N. The tool sits safe between thumb and palm. A letter slides home with a sound like dry seed. This is the composing bench again. This is where patient hours stack into pages. A line breaks wrong. We find the place by fingertip. We lift back to the era. We correct and reset. The strip goes to the proofing press. A small hand press for single lines. One touch of ink, one press, one look. The curve of the C is full now. The punctuation sits square. We talk little as we work. The room likes listening. The hinge sighs when it closes. Wool touches leather. The screw ticks once when it finds home. A page lifts. A page hangs. The rack grows. The ledger grows. The lamp holds its circle. Through each turn, the same 3 quiet things return. The lamp, the scales, the key. This is the key to the coins. It is a small iron lever with a square socket. It tightens boxes into pages, and pages into order. Without it, letters wander. With it, they keep their place. We set the key flat when not in hand. A dropped key wakes the room. At the margin table, we test a page against a tri-square. The inner gutter is safe for sewing. The fold will not cut the word. The outer margin gives a thumb a home. We crease a proof with the bone folder. The crease is straight and quiet. The packet will go to a binder with a note. This is the anchor line. We are at the margin table. The work is simple and exact. Nothing here shouts. Weight and edge and line do their jobs. The lamp glows. The breath levels. If sleep has already come, it is welcome. The story will keep your place. A cart passes outside. Rope keeps the rim from singing on stone. The river smells like iron and cold bread. Someone shuts a door 2 houses away. The echo arrives soft. The press answers with a low wooden hum. We make another pull. The platen descends and rises like a measured tide. We set a small drop cap, cast from a separate drawer. Its face stands high. We pack a slip of paper under its foot to match the text height. We check again by touch, not eye. The surface must be level. The hand knows before the sight does. This is the corner where errors rest. The hell box, a bean for damaged swords, waits with its calm mouth. Broken letters fall there and learn to become something else. Later they will melt and flow through the mold. Letters do not die, they change their shape and try again. The apprentice empties the sweepings into a pan. He finds a stray wire that had lived among the verses. He smiles like someone who caught a button before the coat fell open. He puts the wire back home. He says nothing. The room notices and keeps it. We dampen a stack for the next hour. The cloth flies over the paper like a comb hand. Damp paper takes ink more willingly. Dry paper resists and hisses. To wet and edges feather. The right feel lives between finger and thumb. It is a knowledge that never hurries and never shouts. This is the bench where forms rest when they are tired. We slip thin boards under the iron frame, so the type does not bruise on grit. We cover the top with a clean sheet, so dust does not settle where thought has shape. We lay the coin key on the board. The key catches a strand of lamplight and keeps it. We make a new frisket. The knife cuts clean through the paper. We follow the printed page. Windows opened over the text blocks. The edges of the windows must be simple and square. A ragged edge prints a ragged halo. We paste the frisket to its frame and leave it to dry. The paste smells of flour and quiet work. This is the sound layer of the room. One sound per place. At the case, it is lead on lead. At the stone, it is wood touching iron. At the press, it is the bar's brief weight. At the rack, it is a peg finding cord. Each sound is small enough to fit under a breath. We choose a new face for a title word. The drawer holds black letter and a comma Roman. We pick the comma one. It lies clean and direct. A title earns even light, not heavy dress. We set the word and look for crowded letters. A little more space lets it breathe. This is the proof table. A candle stub lives here for quick tests. The flame is less bright than the lamp, but it tells the truth about edge and pit. We look at the word. The O is round, not pinched. The T meets the line square. The I moves without catching. We nod and return the strip. Now the apprentice takes the ledger. He opens to a clean line. He writes the count, the time, the form name. Names are plain. Gospel sheet B, market letter 2, almanac March. The hand is slow and legible. Morning eyes respect the evening's care. This is the anchor. We are at the ledger shelf. Work becomes memory here. A job is not real until it is named and counted. Paper moves through steps like a measured walk. If sleep has softened your hearing, it is no trouble. The room will keep the walk for you. We go back to the press for another run. The bar is smooth where hands carried weight for years. The post at the far end of the bed shows marks from impatience. We do not add to them. We stay with the slow promise. Another sheet prints. Another line in the count grows. A visitor knocks softly and leaves a parcel. A new fount arrives, wrapped in coarse paper. The sorts glint like small fish in the light. We will learn their weight tomorrow. Tonight we wrap them tight again and put them by the case. A new face asks for time. Time keeps the peace. This is the small corner for glue and thread. To tapes for binding lie coiled, linen and firm. A packet of needles sits in a paper envelope. We test a folded proof against the sewing frame. Holes will go in the fold tomorrow, not tonight. The sight of tools waiting does its own quiet work. The lamp burns low for a moment. We trim the wick. The flame draws clean. Less smoke, more light. The globe clears. The circle grows steady again. Everything that matters sits inside it. Stick, case, stone, press, rack, ledger, scales, key. We check the beam scale once more. Paper and ink do not lie, but memory can. The beam sits level. The brass rider calls under a fingertip. The number agrees with the first note. We close the box and set the scale back exactly square to the board. This is the anchor again. We are at the scale. Balance is the rule that keeps the shop gentle. Words balance on lines. Lines balance in a frame. Pressure balances impression with relief. The body balances wakefulness with rest. If sleep arrives now, let it. The story holds its place like a bookmark. We gather misprints for waste sheets. The ink still shines. We will use them under the form, or to test a wet edge. Nothing throws away without learning something first. Waste teaches as much as pride. A page that failed teaches twice. The apprentice learns to turn the bar with the whole arm. The shoulder follows in a small arc. The body does not jerk. The breath does not catch. The platen likes even pressure. Letters respond to calm, not force. The sheet lifts with 2 fingers, not 4. This is the window. It looks west to the river. The glass is old and wavy. The world moves through it like slow water. A boat lantern passes. It makes a path on the ceiling. The path fades when the boat turns. The lamp holds steady. The press does not notice the river's pace. We lay a new chase on the stone and begin another form. Furniture goes in. Coins slide into place. We test the frame. We tighten and test again. The fingers learn the language of resistance. The ear hears the small change when the wedge is home. We cut a new packer for the tympan. It is a thin sheet that equalizes pressure. Corners must be clean. The surface must be smooth. We paste it and smooth it with the folder. The paste wet sound is like a brush on a wall in spring. This is the third time tonight our three motifs return. The lamp burns the scales, rest the key lies on the board. They are not symbols. They are only objects that do their work. Their steady presence keeps the room honest. We wipe the ink balls and turn them on clean paper until the surface shows a dull, even skin. The leather will thank us in the morning. We cover them with cloth against dust. We clean the knife and wrap it in a rag. The rag carries a map of the evening in dark, soft traces. Another cart goes by, lighter than the first. The wheel rattles less. The street answers with a polite stone whisper. A neighbor coughs and closes a shutter. The river keeps its breath. The shop listens and continues its small tide. This is the last pull for the hour. We ink. We close. We press. We open. We lift. We hang. The order never changes. The order is the rest. A stack grows on the board with a board on top. The board holds the curl down. The corners stay polite. We check the corners for set-off. When wet ink kisses the back of the next sheet, none tonight. The damp was right. The pressure even. The frisket clean. The room says yes in the way a floor says yes. By not speaking, we file a handful of thin spaces into a small paper envelope. They vanish if left loose. The envelope carries their names in a neat hand. Nonpareil, N, M. Their sizes are words and breath. We place the envelope where a hand will find it in the morning without looking. This is the anchor. We are at the case for a last tidy. Broken sorts go to the hell box. Strays go home. The border of the case stays clean. A clean case makes a clean page. A clean page makes a clean mind. It is plain and true. We lower the lamp to a small blue bead. The room softens around it. The press stands with the bar at rest. The key sits where it should. The ledger lies open to the night air, ink drying to a brown quiet. We close it when the line is safe. The door latch lifts and settles without clack. We test it twice. We leave the window peg set loose enough for air. The rack holds its neat row of pages. The circle of light lifts off the wood and comes with us to the threshold, then rests back on the bench as we turn. This is the room at rest. Letters keep their places under the frame. Ink sleeps under cloth. Paper hangs like a slow orchard. Tools hold still in their right angles. Nothing worries. Nothing jostles. The shop keeps its own breath. If sleep arrives, let it. The work will wait here. The second part. Upper Rhine, late 19th century. Dusk at a canal lock not far from Mainz. We step onto wet planks, set a lamp on its hook, and coil the first line flat. The water is brown and even. Marks on the stone show last week's heights. Iron rings sit along the coping, smooth from rope. The gate leaves lean together in a clean V. Timber smells of pitch. Cold rises through the sawless like quiet advice. A towpath runs along the bank, tamped and honest. This is the lock at dusk. A keeper checks the paddles on the head gate. He carries a long iron key, a windlass that fits the square on each spindle. The key's simple: socket, arm, handle. It turns weight into motion without a word. He sets it, leans, and the paddle lifts. Water begins to move with a low, steady hiss. The barge nose is in slow. A boy stands at the bow with a boat hook. The bow fender, a thick rope wreath, touches wood, not stone. The helmsman rests a palm on the tiller and waits. There is no hurry in a lock. The river owns the pace. The air tastes of iron and wet grain. This is the full line. We pass it to the ring, take one turn, and pay out hand over hand. The rope is tarred, it keeps shape under wet. The fibers bite and then settle. The stern line follows, a half turn to hold the boat level. Breast lines keep the hull off the gate. Nothing is knotted tight, nothing needs rescue. Every turn can release without struggle. The keeper raises a second paddle. The level drops. Light steps down the stone by finger widths. The hull creaks once as timbers answer the new weight. A plank in the gate ticks as the joint takes load. The barge sinks as if remembering something. We keep the lines easy and true. The buoy watches the fender. The hook stays low. This is the sound layer at the lock. One sound per place. The hiss at the paddle, a rope sliding on wood, a soft tap from the boat hook on the coping, the click of the keeper's key when the socket finds home. No echoes argue. The water keeps its own sentence length. A ledger lives in the keeper's hut, a short, whitewashed room under a slate roof. The lamp on the table leans toward the page. The ledger shows columns for date, direction, cargo, tonnage, fee. A beam scale in the yard serves small parcels and lock stores. The scale reads in kilos stamped on brass. The rider sits exactly at the mark, not before and not past. The keeper's pencil writes without flourish. The numbers hold the river to account without noise. This is the ledger table. A stamped chit lies under a paperweight made from a smooth river stone. The chit carries a red seal from the canal office. A thin cord ties it to a packet. The tie will cut easily later and leave no fuss. The keeper checks the seal and sets the chit where it wants to be, square to the page, edge in line with the book's margin. We return to the lock wall. The level nears the mark scratched on the upper course of stone. The keeper lowers the paddles with the same iron key. The water grows quiet. He walks the gate beam, tests the balance, and pushes the leaves open together. A bar of wet light appears, then widens. The upper reach sits higher, and we are not going there. We go down. This is the chamber, now half empty. The planks of the gate show the grain where planers moved with care. Wedges stand between timbers to hold joints against swelling. The bolts show the square shoulders of old work, not machine rounds. A fish scales the surface once and is gone. The boy smiles without showing teeth. The boat remains level and still. Tow horses wait on the path, with slack in the traces. Their breath rises and fades. A man checks the harness buckles with a thumb. Each strap is where it was yesterday. He looks at the lock lamp, not the river, and learns the hour by habit. The lamp burns level. The glass is clean. The flame takes no more than it needs. This is the paddle gear on the lower gate. The keeper sets the key and lifts the first inch. He waits. Silt can make a paddle stubborn. Waiting lets water do the persuasion. The hiss resumes, lower now. A faint thread of currents pulls against the stern. We take in a hand's width of line. The fender keeps its quiet duty. A woman on deck opens the hatch to check the cargo. Sacks arranged in a short, crosswise stack. Chalk on the hatch frame notes count and weight. A small tin cup hangs below for the chalk. A short brush sweeps dust from the combing. She closes the hatch, wires the hasp, and notes the time on a strip of card. She ties the strip to the beam with a loop that will not jam when wet. This is the anchor line. We are at the hatch in weak lamplight. Hands close things correctly. No one raises a voice. If sleep has come, it is welcome. The river keeps a finger in the page. The lower paddles rise another turn. The surface begins to draw forward. The gate leans, and then it opens with a grip and a free shoulder, like a door with manners. The keeper stands to one side, weight on the beam, and guides the motion. He does not stare at the boat. He watches the hinge. We pay out both lines enough to clear. The helmsman watches the spillway for a drift that can pull the bow. He gives the tiller to small degrees. The boat obeys without question. Rope tails keep off the deck and out of feet. The boy lifts the hook and lowers it again. He learns to learn by touch. This is the towpath beyond the gate. Ruts in the clay hold last week's rain. A small box stands on a post with a hinged lid and a simple iron key. Inside, lamp oil, spare wicks, a roll of gasket cloth, 3 iron bolts, a tin of graphite. A note sits under a mica weight. Upper paddle pin turned. Grease at next stop. Whoever wrote it knew someone would care and did not need a name. We step ashore with the stern line, loop the ring, and bring the boat's tail in straight. The four-line follows and settles without argument. A heave, a foot of give, and the barge rests in the fairway. The horse driver clucks once. The leather answers with a tidy creak. The first pull is not heavy. The hull finds the center and eases into the reach below. This is the weighbridge by the quay a little downstream. A deck scale takes carts and small wagons. The platform is a plate of wood with iron rim. A dial shows ounces nested into kilos. The pointer holds steady when the planks stop creaking. A merchant sets a crate of glassware square on the center mark. The scale reads the same twice. He nods, then chalks the weight on the lid in a hand that other hands can trust. We note our own parcel rope and tallow for the next reach and step back to the lock again. The keeper has already laid the pole across the beam to close the lower gate. He does not slam. He leans and listens for the leaves to meet. They do. The iron shoes find their uprights. The handle of the windlass points down. He leaves it there. It means the paddle is closed. This is the key once more. It rests on a nail by the door of the hut. The iron is warm from a whole day's grip. The tool needs no speech to ask for respect. It enjoys a place and a habit. Always on that nail, always turned in the same direction. In this reach, order does not shout, it hangs on a nail and keeps its promise. We walk the towpath as the barge settles into steady pull. A ring every 10 paces. A white post at the bend. A mile board with clean numerals. A box 4 letters at the bridge head. The lock keeper lifts its lid twice a day and passes packets to the runner. The system is simple on purpose. The river forgives a slow mind, not a complicated plan. This is the bridge above the weir. The weir spreads the river's fall into a broad, modest step. A wooden walkway crosses on iron shoes. Boards flex under boots with a sound like thick paper. A sign says the obvious into languages. No running. No one needs it at this hour. The lamp on the pier throws a small halo on wet stone. The crew checks draft marks painted at bow and stern. The numbers say the hull sits honest and safe. 3 fingers above the bottom line, given for this reach. We do not recite them, we see them and move on. The helmsman moves the tiller as if turning a page. The boat stays in the middle. The horse keeps the rope at a clean angle. This is the soft image, our one for the chapter. The water folds below the paddles, like a slow cloth being laid on a table. It does not slap. It does not hurry. It moves and rests at the same time. Then we return to work words. Pin, ring, beam, plank, mark. At the keeper's hut, a small clock marks the quarter hour. It is weight driven, the drum wrapped with a cord that lifts to pear-shaped stones. The keeper winds it at dusk with a key not for paddles, but for patience. He checks the lamp level at the same time. The flame sits in the center of the globe where soot will not gather. The glass is wiped with a linen scrap that has seen many evenings and no fuss. This is the anchor. We are at the keeper's table with the lamp and the ledger. He counts the coins from the last 3 passes and sorts them by feel. The small rim of copper, the heavier disc of silver. He lays them on a cloth, writes the sum in the book, and ties the pouch with a flat knot. The knot will open even with cold fingers. A boy from the village brings a note from the upstream office. He removes his cap and waits by the door. The keeper reads the note, which is not urgent. A barrel of oil will arrive next week. A mason will check the stone at the north wing wall. A new rider for the weighbridge is approved. The boy accepts a heel of bread and the quiet word. He steps into the blue hour and is gone. We walk the wall and touch each pin that holds the gate strap. Iron speaks through a palm better than through the eye. A loose pin shows itself by a cooler feel near the base. All are firm tonight. A smear of graphite at one hinge shows someone else was here yesterday and cared. This is the ring set into the coping at the middle of the chamber. Its lamination shows years of rope. The top edge is smooth and round the underside holds a ridge that never sees hands. We lift the ring once it moves and settles without grit. We set it down the way we found it, aligned with the flow, not across it. Small things point the way for the next small thing. Downstream, the barge passes the last white post before the bend. The driver gives the rope a foot more slack for the turn. The horse leans and steps, not more, not less. The whole follows the line as readily as a needle follows a hem. A small flag at the stern lifts and falls. It does not try to explain the wind, it only answers it. This is the bank close to the water. Reeds show the quiet places where current rests. A stake marks the shallows near a shingle spit. The stake wears a sleeve of tarred cloth that keeps sunlight from cracking it. A hand has done that for years. No one announces it. The stake simply lasts. We pass a pull-in where barges wait their turn after rain. A notice board under a tin hood lists times for this week, written in chalk in a square hand. The board is not strict, but it is honest. Seeing it, a crew knows if tea should be poured now or later. Tonight, the board's numbers line up with the hour. The river has been reasonable. This is the small store by the lock. Its door has a latch you lift with a finger hooked under. Inside, rope by the fathom, pins, leather patches, tallow, lamp glass, a line of enamel mugs, and a crate of biscuits that are more patient than sweet. The storekeeper weighs coil and patch, are upon scale, writes the figure, and wraps both in paper. The scales pointer settles clean. The paper crinkles low. We sign a name that many hands can read. We return to the gate. A little weed gathers at the heel post. The keeper lifts it with a fork and sets it in a basket. Weeds do not announce damage, they cause it later. The basket will go to the bank, then to compost at the cottage garden. Nothing speaks in capital letters here. Things act and are done. This is the lower gate beam under lamplight. Fingerprints in old tar catch the light and let go. A split has been stitched with 2 iron dogs set in shallow mortises. The dogs have held for years because someone chose the right depth. The beam does not mind the repair, it minds neglect. The barge calls once with a small bell near the stern, one quick, plain note to say clear. The keeper hears and answers with a raised palm that says seen. No voice travels the water. The bell note thins, spreads, and disappears under the plank smell. Night brings slower echoes and kinder ones. This is the last anchoring line before we move on. We stand by the lamp, the scales, and the key. They are the 3 quiet things that thread the reach together. The lamp promises a circle where work is seen without strain. The scales hold numbers steady. The key makes weight yield to motion, and then rests where a hand can find it again. If sleep arrives now, let it, the reach will keep your place as surely as a knot holds a ring. We close the hut door to a thumb's pressure. The latch answers with its small, well-known sound. The keeper runs a hand along the ledger spine before he leaves it. He hangs the key where it lives. He lifts the lamp, trims the wicker breath, and sets it back. The flame does not blink. This is the towpath a quarter mile on. The horse's shoes find the hard line in the center, not the soft edge. The rope angle stays modest. A fresh white mark on a tree it was repainted last month shows the safe arc for the bend when water is a hand higher. Tonight, it simply pleases the eye. Order can do that when it is quiet enough. At the bend, a small bridge crosses a feeder. Its stones hold names cut shallow by a mason, so they will wear well. A letter from long ago asks you to read it without widening your eyes. We do not. We pass and feel the lines in the feet, which is all the inscription ever wanted. This is the last job at the lock before full dark. We check the paddle spindles for warmth. A hot spindle means a worn bush. All look cool. We look at the sill, just a glance to see if drift has lodged under the gate. The flow bears clean. The keeper nods. He does not say good. He sets the pole back on its hooks with the handle to the left, same as always. We make a final note in the book at the hut table. Time, boat name, cargo, fee. The pen lifts and is wiped on a cloth. The cloth shows years of honest ink. The page turns with no sound that could wake anyone. The lamp's circle holds. The river keeps moving. If sleep arrives, let it. The path will be where you left it. The lamp, the scales, and the key will be here. The third part. Morning on a cobbled square in a small German town. The bell has not yet struck the hour. We fold back the store awning, set a lamp under its tin shade for the first few minutes of grey light, and lift the lid of the weight chest with a small iron key that always turns to the right. This is the weighing table at dawn. The beam scale sits on its oak post, knife edge clean, pans level. A dusting of chalk marks yesterday's center. We wipe it in one slow circle. Brass weights wait in their wells, 1, 2, 5, 10. Each bears a stamped crown and year, a quiet promise that numbers will not wander. A leather pad keeps the heavy ones from bruising the wood. We set the rider at 0 and test the empty balance. The pointer rests where it should, steady over the line. The bread bench stands 2 paces away. Still warm loaves rest under a cloth. The baker's mark sits on each round, a small star or a shallow cross. A thin blade trims stray dough from the tray. The knife meets bread with a low, even sound. A ledger lies open beside the bench. A pencil waits, point turned away from the edge, so it will not roll. This is the anchor line. We are at the bread bench and the beam. The morning is plain. Hands move before voices do. The lamp keeps a shallow circle. The key lies on the lid of the chest, where any hand can see it. Order starts at small. The inspector arrives with a wooden case. He nods, unlatches the lid, and lifts a nested set of standards. They look like weights, but they are weights for weights test pieces with a known, stubborn character. He cleans the knife edge of our scale with a strip of oiled paper. He sets a test kilogram on the left pan and finds its match with ours on the right. The pointer swings and slows. It finds center without drama. He smiles by moving nothing except one corner of his mouth. We place a loaf on the pan and watch the beam move. The law in this town says a bread of this size should weigh 1.5 marks when sold before the 2nd hour, and not less by the 3rd. We pull 3 of our brass pieces and a small iron rider. The beam floats, hesitates, and finds home. The baker nods. He writes the count in the ledger and keeps his promise by habit, not by fear. A thin thumbprint of flour on the page looks like a soft seal. This is the lintel where measures hang. Rods for cloth, rods for ribbon, rods for rope. The L for cloth runs longer than an arm. Its edge is burnished smooth by 1,000 passes. A bracket holds a short iron rule stamped into inches for the rare customer who asks that way. Each rod wears a notch near the hook where the inspector once bit it with a stamp. That bite says, "Enough and no more." A woman comes with linen, folded and pinned. She tells the number she needs. We set the cloth on the board and draw it straight by a gentle pull. The rod lies down, edge at the mark. We cut with shears that sound like a door opening politely. We smooth the cut edge with the back of a fingernail. We wrap the fold with paper, tie with a flat cotton tape, and seal the knot with a twist that opens without a fight. This is the small drawer of coin weights. They sit in shallow cups lined with felt, thin brass leaves the size of a fingernail, each marked for a coin. A traveller pays in pieces we do not see every day. We test one, weight on one pan, coin on the other. The beam tells us true. The coin passes without argument. We write its value in the ledger in the unit the traveller understands and in the one the town uses. The numbers meet like neighbours at a fence and share a drink of ink. A scale for spices occupies the corner of our table. Its pans are small, its beam short, its rider light as a dry leaf. We weigh peppercorns and cloves into neat packets. A folded square of paper becomes a pouch with 2 honest corners. We crease with a bone folder and press the seam so a grain does not escape. The smell moves low, close to the board, and then sits down. This is the anchor. We stand at the spice scale under the lamp. A customer asks for less talk and more measure, and we give it gladly. If sleep has arrived at your edge, you can let it. The square will keep its place. The beam will find the line again. By the fountain a cooper checks the hoop on a small barrel. He taps iron dogs into their seats with a mallet. The blows are not loud. He tests the stave joints with water from the bucket, watching for a dark line. The fountain itself runs in a measured string from a spout shaped like a fish. A boy fills jugs and ties their cords to a stick across his shoulders. He keeps the stick level and the cords equal, so the load does not teach him a hard lesson. This is the assay bench for salt. A bowl holds brine from the last boil. We weigh a measure of it in a small glass and note the number. The more salt, the more weight. Today's figure sits where it should. We write the salt master's name and the hour. The page shows columns and short lines, not flourishes. When the night clerk reads this, Nothing will wake him. A drover brings a crate of eggs. The crate is a frame with straw in even nests. He sets it square on the deck scale near the stair. The platform takes load from all four corners. The pointer steadies and then rests. We subtract the crate weight marked on the slat. The drover does not ask for a favor. He looks at the number and knows it has no opinion. This is the narrow table 4 thread. Spools sit in a row, each with a paper band that names its gauge in a common word. We do not sell by mystery here. A woman who sews holds to spools in her palm and weighs them like fruit. She smiles at the lighter one, not because it deceives, but because the job needs that exact smallness. We write her number on a strip and tie it to the bag. A brassel goes to the fabric stall down the line. The man there tests it against his own, end to end, hook to hook. The hooks kiss and sit, and the numbers agree. He nods. He hangs both rods back on their pegs with the numbers facing out. So even a half glance from a sleepy eye finds reassurance. This is the bread bench again for the second hour. The loaves cool and their weight shifts. We weigh a fresh sample. The beam dips less now and settles higher. The baker planned for this. He sized the dough to forgive cooling and still meet the line. He breaks open one loaf for himself, not to eat, but to see the crumb. It shows even holes and a comb, clean tear. He sets it aside for later. A lesson kept warm by a cloth. A watchmaker from the lane sets a small parcel on our scale. It holds a brass gear blank and a note with a number. He wants weight to the gram his bench, and his eye depend on it. We use the little rider and breathe away from the pan, so air cannot misread our intent. The pointer hesitates, then returns to center. He takes the parcel and laughs without a sound. His day just grew simpler by one small fear. This is the long table near the miller sacks. We test flour by volume and by feel. A tin scoop fills a measure. A leveler passes once across the lip. The scoop moves like a moon across a window, calm and complete. The miller keeps a wooden ruler cut to the inside width of the measure. If he could not find the leveler, the ruler would do. He does not need a lecture. He needs a tool where his hand expects it. Across the square, a stall sells ribbons by the span. The vendor uses a spring scale, not a beam. The spring remembers stretching, a beam remembers balance. For today's work, either will keep faith if kept honest. The inspector leans on the ribbon stall's post and watches one weighing. He sees nothing to say and nods to the air. The nod is the town certificate. This is the anchor line. We stand again at the main beam. The lamp is out now, daylight owns the board. The key has returned to a leather thong on a nail. The scales have told the same story all morning. Weight meets weight. And the world agrees for a while. If sleep comes, let it, the beam knows where to rest. We keep a small book of conversions in a pocket under the table. Pounds to kilos, marks to pfennigs, ells to centimeters for the curious, liters to quarts for those who traveled. The book is thin and quick. It lives here, not by pride, but because memory has a day when it fumbles. A merchant arrives with metal pans for his own scale. He wants them checked. We set a standard on one pan and his pan on the other. They balance. We test the second. It floats a little light. We place a thin brass shim under its center. The beam settles. We take a punch and bite the rim with the town stamp. One gentle tap. The mark says, "Now you can leave this alone." This is the drawer of seals and twine. A cinnabar cake sits in cotton, a little water softens it. We press a wooden stamp into the red and touch a packet with it. The stamp makes a circle no bigger than a coin, with a key and 2 scales carved inside. That small picture anchors the day. A tool that opens, a tool that levels. A grocer asks for a check on his counter scale. We carry our traveller's standards to his stall. We clear a space with the back of a hand. We set, test, and adjust one screw at the base. He nods and slides a tin of coffee to our elbow by way of thanks. We do not refuse. It will be coffee tomorrow morning at this same hour. Halfway through setup, when the air still smells like damp rope and brass. This is the cloth rolled at noon. Sun warms the numbers and makes the brass nail heads shine. A brown moth rests on the edge like a folded ticket. We do not disturb it. We measure and cut as before. The shears open and close with their polite door sound. The customer takes her packet, and the morth lifts and moves one board over as if following the work. A tinsmith lays flat sheets on his own scale. He weighs them against a chalk mark on the bench. He cuts along a line with long snips. The cut runs true, because the sheet weighed true. He smooths the edge with a file and checks the weight again. The second number sits where the first said it would. Ting gives no surprises when the scale goes first. This is the anchor. We are at the coin box. It opens with the same small key that lifted the weight chest. The box has 3 trays for 3 sizes. Each tray has a felt pad to keep counting quiet. We stack coins by tens and write their total. The pencil does not squeak. Numbers settle like birds on a branch and then stop moving. For our one image in this chapter, we watch chalk dust drift through a beam of sun under the awning, falling at the pace of a slow thought. And then we return to plain words and plain tools. A farmer brings cheese wrapped in cloth. The cloth holds moisture, and moisture adds weight. He does not try to keep it. He unwraps the wheel without prompting and sets it bare on the pan. The number pleases his face by not changing it. He ties the cloth with a firm, flat knot that knows how to open later. This is the small bench for dye. A dyer asks for a measure of alum. We weigh it on the spice scale and tip it into a jar. Alum is a salt that makes color stay. He pays in coin and thanks us in a word that fits in the space between 2 breaths. He slips the jar into a basket lined with cloth, so glass will not speak when it should be quiet. A post courier passes with a leather bag. He sets it on the deck scale only to test himself. He guesses the weight first, then looks. His guess is close. He grins as if a friend nodded from a crowd. He tightens the strap one hole and walks on. Somewhere ahead, a timetable waits under a lamp. The town runs on many scales. This is the end of the morning check. We wipe the pans with a cloth and set the rider to 0 again. We return the brass to their wells, 1 in 1, 2 in 2. The inspector closes his box. He signs our ledger, a neat name, an hour, a small stamp in the margin. The stamp is a circle with a number and a date. It looks formal, it is only practical. It lets the evening clerk sleep. Afternoon cools the square. A cloud crosses the sun and gives the awnings a soft, even light. The lamp, cold now, hangs like a habit under its shade. The key returns to a pocket. The beam waits for the next small argument between weight and wish. It will side with weight. That is its job. And it does not tire. This is the anchor line. We stand once more at the beam and look down the table at lamp, scales, and key. They have followed us from print room to lock to market. They do not ask to be noticed. They prefer the work to be their voice. If sleep arrives now, let it. The measure will be here when you open your eyes. A last customer comes with nails in a paper bag. He asks us to check his claim that the bag holds a kilo. We pour them onto the pan and find our number. He's right within a breath. We slide 3 nails back into his bag so the beam finds perfect center. He smiles at the small fairness and leaves with the bag a shade lighter and the day a shade steadier. We rub a finger over the knife edge one final time and cover the pans with cloth. We lower the awning, set the rods on their hooks, and close the weight chest with the iron key. It turns right, then flat. The lid sits down with a sound like a book closing at the end of a page. The stone under the table holds the shape of our feet. Tomorrow it will fit us again. If sleep arrives, let it. Morning keeps the measure. The 4th part. Black Forest, early 19th century. Morning in a small clock shop. We unbolt the shutters, set the lamp behind its glass, and sweep the bench clear of last night's coals. Resin hangs in the air with a hint of iron from the tools. This is the board for the plates. 2 squares of seasoned spruce lie flat, plain to a quiet, even thickness. We mark centers with a pricker, sighting along a straight edge rubbed with charcoal. A tri-square checks the shoulders. A marking gauge runs once along the edge and leaves a clean, thin groove. The bench hook holds the work without fuss. This is the anchor line. We are at the plate bench. Hand set lines, not theories. The lamp keeps a shallow pool of light on the wood. If drowsiness is near, Let it come, the bench will keep your place. We bore pivot holes with a bow drill. The bowstring is waxed, the bit is sharp. We turn slow, lift, clear the dust, and go again. Each hole meets its partner square. We broach lightly with a tapered reamer, so the pivots will turn without complaint. A thin sliver of pear wood, blackened with soot, serves as a witness to the fit. Rub, turn, and look for an even rink. This is the wheel board. Discs of maple rest under a cloth. Their face is chalked with layout marks. We set a tooth count by dividers. Step, prick, around the circle, until the last step meets the first without crowding. A bow saw cuts between marks. A file dresses each tooth to the same quiet angle. The file's note is dry and sure. We do not hurry, the escapement prefers patience to skill. We shape a lantern pinion. To brass end caps hold 8 wires like organ pipes in a small frame. We cut the wires round the ends and press them into the caps. The press is a hand vise that answers with a steady squeeze and a stillness at the end. We test the mesh. Will teeth glide across the pinion? Without catching, the sound is felt more than heard. This is the verge and pallets, the heart that sets the beat. An iron strip, blued by a careful flame, carries to pallets filed to angle. We fit it to the arbor and sight along the wheel. One pallet should enter, as the other leaves. The escape will teeth must kiss and let go, not gnaw. We move the bridge a hair and tighten the screw only until the wood knows it is held. The pendulum rod lies on the bench fur, with a brass bob that threads up and down on a small nut. We mark the regulating scale in plain numbers and short lines. A second's beat is not a spell, it is a length. The rod length sets the pace, the nut makes the small promise true. We do not say the formula aloud. We read the rod and trust the habit. This is the chain, wheel and ratchet. The wheel has deep, honest seats for each link. The ratchet and click keep the weight from giving back what it has given. We file the click spring from a strip of steel, polish its edge until it shines like wet slate, and rivet it in place. A touch of tallow makes the first movement quiet. We tug the chain once. The click nods. The wheel forgives the pull. On the far bench, bellows wait for their voices. 2 little pipes, 1 4-coup, 1 4-screw, sit in a wooden block. Leather is cut to a generous template. Grain inward, flesh out. We glue the hinge with hot hide glue that smells like broth and patience. A thin reed sits under each mouth. We try the lift by finger. The bellows rise, fall, and seal without drama. The air talks in simple syllables. This is the anchor. We stand at the bellows board. Tools are level. Glue calls to us. Skin clamps follow in pairs, so wood is not taught to twist. If sleep leans closer, it is welcome. The syllables will wait. We carve leaves for the shield. A basswood plank shows pencil lines for vine and bird. A gouge follows the line, then a V-tool cuts borders. The chips rise and curl like dry feathers and drop clean. We stop shy of thin edges. A coat of green will give them the rest of their sharpness. A small all marks holes for the screws that will meet the case. Holes before screws, restraint before paint. This is the case frame. Stiles and rails of pine joined by through tenons and wooden pins. We test the joints dry, then warm the pins in the pocket, so glue will not seize too soon. The mallet asks once and is answered once. The frame squares itself under the tri-square and stays there. We wipe the squeeze out with a wet rag, not to polish, but to keep later tools from catching. We hang the movement in the frame. For corner posts, weight with shallow mortises. We slide the plate assembly in and set the screws until the head just kisses wood. A strip of thin leather between brass and timber forgives seasonal moods. The train spins free by fingertip. The wheels say nothing, that is the sound we want. This is the dial bench. A shield face of pine is gessoed and sanded until the brush can skate. Numerals are marked with a pounce. Paper pattern pricked with holes. A bag of charcoal dust pats a faint, even trail. A comb hand follows with black paint. G.I. The minute marks march in 60s. Little soldiers that do not need to be told their job. A small flower at each corner lifts the plane with a polite nod. Weights are poured in the yard. We do this under a tin roof, away from the shavings. A crucible melts lead cut from old pipe. The mold is a simple tube with a plug. We weigh the charge on a beam scale, rider set to the gram we trust. The scale is our old friend from the market square, beam level, pointer steady. The charge meets the mold, a blue-grey skin forms, and tightens a wire loop sets in the top for the chain. The weight calls and becomes an answer that will not change its mind. This is the anchor. We are at the beam scale in the yard, with the lamp moved aside for daylight. Lead is not romantic, it is obedient. The scale keeps it that way. If your eyes close for a moment, the pointer will hold your place. We file the weight seam and blacken its skin with lamp soot and oil. We lengthen the chain by one link so the bob will settle mid-window. The case door hangs straight on iron pins. Its latch is a simple spring and a round key with a square hole that meets the post. The key turns with the same patient quarter turn as the shop's front door. Keys do not shout, they either fit or do not fit. The cuckoo door pivots onto brass pins. We test the wire to the bellows lifter. Up, down, no stick, no lag. A small counterweight on the tail helps it close without scolding. We set the bird carved and painted plane and let it learn its little path behind the door. When the rack falls, the bird should step once, not argue with the world. This is the test frame by the window. 2 nails in a board hold the case while we set beat. We nudge the verge until the tick and tock match in length and patience. The pendulum writes a long, mild S in the air. Oil tastes the pivots in half drops, front and back, edge of the capillary, never on wood. A sheet of paper under the plates tells us if we have been careless it remains clean. We put the clock to work on the bench, not the wall. The beat meets the room and teaches it a pace. The lamp light makes the brass warm on one half turn, cool on the other. The chain moves, link by link, and piles a small, honest heap at the foot of the weight. This is the one image we keep for the chapter. Dust motes drift in the pendulum's wake like a faint tide that forgot to hurry, crossing the lamp's narrow beam, then settling again where they were. Then we return to wood, steel, and simple numbers. We mark the strike. A count wheel holds notches for the hours. The rack tail meets the snail on the cannon pinion. We lift and let fall until the rack finds its last tooth at 12. We do not celebrate. We file the lifting piece so it frees the bird with the first blow, not the second. The bellows open and close in turn. The pipes speak. The door knows when to stand aside and when to sit. This is the anchor line. We are at the strike train, watching the rack and snail behave like neighbors who nod and keep moving. If sleep has widened your breathing, let it. The rack will still be there when you return. We paint the shield. Leaves in quiet greens, a ribbon in red-brown, a borderline in black so thin it almost doubts itself. The paint dries to a soft eggshell. We set a clear coat with a brush that never clinks the ferrule on the rim. We lift the shield by its edge and carry it to the case for screws meet 4 holes. The driver turns once, twice, and stops when the head lies flush. A test weight of a little less mass rides for an hour, so we can hear the movement. Dislike starvation if it will. It does not. We put the full weight back. The chain's free end is tied with a small knot that releases without teeth. A note on a slip tells the beer the setting habit. Wind each evening until the pine cone rests under the leaf. This is the little drawer of keys. Clock keys live with cupboard keys and the front door key that opens when morning begins. We try each clock key one last time in the square. The bit meets the ward. The plug turns. The lock closes practice into quiet. The key returns to the drawer handle first, always, so any hand knows which way to pick it up in the dark. A neighbor brings a broken pendulum rod from another house. The break is at the thread. We cut a scarf joint, glue, and bind with linen tape. We turn a new brass nut with a shoulder that will not chew the wood. We polish the threads with chalk and oil until they pass and return without argument. The neighbor leaves the rod with us until morning, content with a promise he can check with his ear. This is the varnish table. We lay a thin coat on the case edges and let it sleep a quart hour. We do not want shine, we want a skin against fingers and seasons. A drying board, 2 pegs and a rail, takes the shield and keeps dust away. The room smells of resin, glue, and spent work. We mount the finished clock on the wall peg for a full day run. A paper square under the bob catches any oil that should not travel, remains blank. The bob's nut sits at mid-scale, the beat reads even in the ear. We listen without staring. The hour goes by. This is the anchor. We stand by lamp, scales, and key again. The lamp shows only what it must. The scales on the bench small, tin pans for screws, and washers keep pairs matched and promises remembered. The key sits in the drawer, ready to make or undo a small lock without fuss. If sleep arrives now, let it, the pendulum will count for you and never raise its voice. We wrap the clock in paper and straw for delivery. The paper is tied with flat tape that learns to open kindly. A red wax seal meets the cord where it crosses the shop stamp bites and leaves its circle. A lamp, a beam, a small key. The wax calls while we sweep the bench. Evening returns. We oil the bow drill, wipe the files with a rag that keeps their bite, and put the gouges bevel up where hands expect them. The test frame leans against the wall with its nails empty. The glue pot is emptied and washed with hot water, then left to dry by the lamp. The shop forgets its noise and keeps only its rhythm. We lower the lamp wick to a point no larger than a seed. The pendulum still swings in the near room, testing our ears as if we were not here. The door key turns once the latch settles. Wood waits, and the quiet pendulum keep faith with the dark. If sleep arrives, let it. Morning will find the beat. The fifth part. Hesse, early 20th century. Dawn at a small city station. We lift the shutter of the ticket window, check the float in the till, and set a lamp behind the brass grill so the counter shows a clean oval of light. Outside, the platform boards are dark with dew. The iron rail carries the night's cool like a straight, polite thought. This is the timetable wall. A wooden case holds printed sheets behind glass, rows of places and hours in a hand that chose clarity over style. A thin brush clears last night's dust from the frame. We unclip a fresh supplement, one change for a Wednesday goods train, and square its corners under the brass tabs, so the top line is level. A pencil mark, no longer than a thumbnail, notes the date on the back. The clock above the case shows 5 before the hour. Its minute hand is long and calm, its face is broad and without fuss. The parcel scale sits under the eaves. Its platform is iron. Its beam is firm. Its pointer waits at 0. We set the rider there with 2 fingers and test the empty balance. The beam rests where it should. We lift the first sacker, tied canvas bag, with a card in a tin frame and set it square on the platform. The pointer steps, hesitates, and finds home. We write the number on the card in a hand the night clerk will read without waking. The card slides back under the tin clip. The rope knot on the sack is a flat loop that opens with a sober tug. A key does not deserve more ceremony than a rope does. This is the anchor line. We are at the timetable and the scale. The lamp inside the window keeps its shallow pull. The keys on their ring sit on a nail where anyone on duty can see them. If your breath is slow, keep it the board and the beam will keep your place. We carry the sack to a barrow and tie it to the rail with a half hitch and a single turn. Nothing that will need a knife later. The barrow's tires are hard and quiet. The iron rim of the wheel meets the platform's edge with a sound like 2 coins agreeing. A porter checks the distance to the safety line with a glance. He does not count boards. He knows the measure by the way his foot lands. This is the ticket drawer. Cards stand in ranks, each slot a place. Kassel, Fulda, Frankfurt, small towns in between. The card edges show a life of gentle fingers. We ink the data with one press on a pad that smells of varnish and sleep. The station stamp sits steady in its cradle, a brass ring around a date and a name. We bring it down once on a card. The ring leaves a neat circle. Cards are promises that weigh almost nothing and move a day along. A woman in a dark coat asks for a 3rd class to Hanau and back. We pull one outward and hold it with the date at the top. A pencil writes a small note in the ledger. The coins cross the wood and do not scrape. Our till trays carry felt, so the sums never raise their voice. We pass the ticket under the grill. She thanks us with her eyes, and the ticket disappears into a book that already knows its slot. This is the signal key cupboard in the office. Its door has 3 iron wards. The station key ring holds a bit that knows them. The key turns with a quarter turn that never changes. Inside, each line has a tag, points, lock, lamp store, safe. Keys live on hooks with their heads outward. A brass plate says, "Return to hook before leaving." We do not need the plate. Habit says the same thing in fewer words. The porter wheels the barrow to the luggage van. The guard opens the van with a short key and a twist that learned its stop years ago. The lock yields without complaint. We weigh each trunk on the barrow's scale again to keep the numbers honest between desk and door. The chalk hand at the van door weighs the weight and the destination on the slate. The slate shows fortnight's worth of careful columns. It is old and smooth. The cloth that wipes it carries a map of old lists. This is the platform clock. It sits over the middle like a face that forgot how to frown. Its hands move with no drama. The minute hand steps, both feet down. The second hand does not race, it walks. The time and the timetable shake hands and agree a few times each hour. No one applauds. They are old neighbors. A faint thread of steam slips along the far line. We do not name it loudly, we call it morning air made curious. The signal cabin's windows show a man in a vest lifting one lever partway, then back, then forward. A measured practice to feel the weights and the pins that turn rods under the ballast. He watches the little indicator that shows the points are locked. A small lamp behind glass says green with a quiet shine. This is the anchor line. We are at the cabin steps, watching levers that speak in inches, not in adjectives. If your eyes grow heavy, let them. The lever will stop at the correct notch, whether you see it or not. Down the platform, to post bags wait on a bench. They are made of leather that forgives rain. Each bag has a brass tag with a number and a locked mouth under a flap. The postman's key is a simple thing with a square shaft and a bow rubbed smooth by years. He tests it once in the lock, not to show us, but to show himself he did not pocket the wrong one. He does not open them yet. He places them so the guard will not step on them in the half-light. The lamplighter walks with a pole and a compass. The newest lamps under the canopy do not need him electric, glass, and wire, but the ones at the far end ask for his hand. He tips the shutter, checks the mantle, and lowers the flame a breath, so the glass will not soot. He does not visit the platform clock. The clock eats electricity and keeps its face clean by itself. This is the chalkboard for platform changes. We write to letters and a number in a square, firm hand, G to 3. A goods arrival will take the far road, not the near. We wipe the old letters with a damp rag and leave the board with no shadow. The rag smells of the bucket by the standpipe. The bucket smells like iron and simple time. In the parcel office, a beam scale with brass pans handles small things that people care about. A jar of marmalade wrapped in twine. A pair of boots that will fit a son who has stopped outgrowing things. A clock face under stiff paper. We weigh, write, and tie. A red seal touches the knot. The seal has a key and a set of scales cut into it. The wax remembers both better than we do, and will say so at the next desk without raising its voice. This is the luggage rack by the waiting room. To long bars hold case handles, so straps do not bruise on edges. A porter's strap carries a buckle that has learned one hole for nearly everything. He lifts, slides, and sets. He does not throw. The wood under the straps is varnished against the years, but respects the marks they make, the way any bench respects a good tool. A man with a timetable folded to a small square checks his finger against a column, looks up at the platform clock, and breathes in quietly. He folds the square one more time and puts it in his hatband. He will not need the paper again. The hat will remind him without effort. The timetable on the wall, not jealous, it likes when a person knows a rhythm by heart. This is the anchor line. We are at the ticket window again, as the first queue forms in ones and twos. People say morning the same way, whether they slept or not. If your head nods where you sit, that is proper. The ledger does not need your attention to be legible. A hand cart near the flower stall carries wet stems and folded paper. The scale, there is a small hanging spring with a hook. The flower seller does not need grams to make a living. She knows by eye. She uses the scale for the few who ask. And the pointer is honest when it is asked. She ties a green string around a packet and adds a sprig that costs nothing and always returns more than it costs. We change a metal sign from 2 to 3 above a flight of steps. The sign takes both hands and the key to release a catch. The key turns a square, the catch drops, the frame lifts and settles. It is not a heavy job. It is an exact one. The sign sits straight because it was made to sit straight. The screw holes do not drift. The paint does not shout. This is the little office where the bench ledger lives. It holds times when we swept, times when we wound the platform clock, times when the oil on the lever pins asked for replacing. The book remembers without emotion. We write wound 5 o'clock on a clean line. We do not circle the note or stroke a flourish under it. The clock will thank us in the only way it knows, by not asking for attention later. On the far track, a small handcar rests by the shed. 2 men lift its handle and let it fall to feel if the pump needs grease. 1 man listens to the chain, the other watches the rods. They do not talk, they nod. 1 goes for a can, the other sets a rag under the axle before grease can make a mess. The can's lid takes a key that looks like a coin with teeth. It opens with a click that would not wake a child. This is the one image we keep for the chapter. Breath from the first engine, the far end lifts and thins like a silk scarf that forgot its color, hanging for a heartbeat in the high air under the roof, then vanishing as if it had never needed to be seen. Then we go back to bolts, cards, and the short words of work. The guard takes the chalk slate down and writes a fresh line. G204 to Vans plus brake. He holds the chalk like a small knife and does not waste it by pressing too hard. He hangs the slate again where the driver will read it without moving his neck. The brake van's lamp is clean. Its glass carries no soot. The lamp key on the guard's chain is a simple square. He turns it once, tests the wick and sets the cap home. This is the anchor. We are at the parcel scale again. A long, narrow box arrives with a printed label for a shop 1 stop ahead. We set it on the pan. The pointer travels and returns. We press a seal to the knot and write the time of weighing on the card. A penciled arrow shows which way the knot opens. The next hand will be grateful to not have to think. At the far end of the platform, a gate with a short, vertical lock secures the foot crossing. We carry the key from its hook. Open the gate for the porter to pass with a barrow. Unlock it behind him. The key moves only one way. It does not pretend to be more interesting than it is. It turns and behaves. The hinge greets us and returns to its line. The ticket inspector checks his punch. It bites a neat diamond into a test card. The jaws are clean. He wipes them once on a cloth, so no paper will stick when the morning warms. He hangs the punch on his belt and sets his cap in a way that keeps weather off his ears and his eyes honest. This is the waiting room. Benches sit with their backs to the wall, their faces to the door. A stove waits for colder days. Today it holds no fire. A rack keeps umbrellas in a polite cluster. A sign asks for no smoke in a voice that does not pretend to be a parent. The floorboards were scrubbed last evening. The grain still holds a damp sheen where the bucket gave more than the rag asked. We check the wall clock in the room and compare it to the platform clock. The minute hands agree. The seconds do not try to. The clocks accept one another's opinions. We wind the wall clock anyway. It is easier to keep a habit than remember the day when the habit missed. This is the anchor line. We are at the timetable case once more. We run a finger under the bottom edge to make sure the new supplement still sits true. If your eyelids are heavy, let them be. The hours will not wander while you rest. A bicyclist rolls down the ramp to the parcel door, tires whispering. He dismounts, leans the frame against the wall so it will not scar, and produces a square parcel and a neat card. The scale reads, the hand writes, the string ties. The string knows where the knot goes because 100 small parcels taught it. We replace the ink pad in the data before it begs. Old ink leaves lines that fade. Fresh ink leaves a line that a clerk will bless in 2 towns. We seat the pad and press once to wake it. The date comes up bright and even. Today has a shape now, not just a name. A boy with a school satchel stands on his toes to see the board. He reads the top line with a finger, then the second. He does not need the third. He drops his finger and goes to the bench. He has learned time by watching grown hands do small things right. This is the yard gate to the coal store. It uses the same flat key as the lamp room. We check the heap with a glance and run a shovel across the top to keep it from slumping into the path. The shovel's edge is square. It returns the line to the heap and the path to the path. The gate closes. The key returns to its hook. Bow to the left, teeth to the right, the way anyone would expect to find it at night. We carry an oil can along the track and touch the hinge pins on the signal arms. The oil moves because the felt inside the can understands slow gravity. We wipe the drips. An arm lowers and rises in the distance. A calm salute from a friend you don't need to impress. This is the last check before the hour. Tickets faced, coins stacked, chalkboard fresh, platform clear, barrow wheels clean, parcels labelled, van doors ready, keys where they live, scale pointer at 0. The station breathes in. The morning steps onto the boards. The clock moves its long hand to the mark and does not hurry. If sleep arrives, let it. The timetable will hold your line. The lamp, the scales, and the key will be here when you lift your head. The sixth part. Valley near Augsburg, 18th century. First light on a low, long mill. We lift the bar from the door, pocket the iron key, where it always lives, and draw a lamp behind its horn shade, so the sorting bench holds a quiet circle. Outside, the wheel begins its slow turn. Inside, the floor smells of wet wood, lime, and clean cloth. This is the rag room. Bales arrive bound with twine and sealed with a wax stamp. No one bothers to admire. We cut the cord, open the bale, and lift out linen that has forgotten its first life, shirts without buttons, sheets with honest wear. A knife with a blunt nose finds seams, a hook lifts hems. Metal clasps and bone stays go into a tin pail. We keep them for the smith. Buttons travel to a jar that grows a small fortune of useless ovals. The cloth goes 3 ways: fine, middling, coarse. Our hands know before our eyes do. A beam scale waits at the end of the bench. We weigh each heap and write the number in a ledger that likes short lines and straight columns. This is the anchor line. We are at the scale and the rag bench. The lamp shows a shallow pool. The key sits on its nail. If your breath has lengthened, good, the ledger and the beam will not lose your place. We cut the cloth into small squares with shears that talk like a polite door. The squares fall into a vat of clean water, and slake for a day old dirt loosens its grip, and starch accepts defeat. We lift the cloth with a wicker scoop that drains evenly and leaves nothing behind to sour. A boy turns the handle of a wringer, not hard, just enough. Water returns to the channel and keeps its mild colour. A small chalk line on the trough says, where it should sit today, it sits there. This is the stamping room. 3 trip hammers stand over a trough, their heads shod in wood, not iron, so the pulp learns to be fine without being bruised to slime. Cams on a shaft lift each head in turn. The mill race gives the shaft its patience. The heads fall, not loudly, thud, 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 then rest. We add rag squares, clean water, and a handful of lime. The mix lightens and softens, threads forget their knots. We do not chase speed. Speed makes paste. Paste makes heavy paper that never quite dries right. In a chest by the wall, wire and small pliers wait. Here live the watermark shapes, sewn to molds with thin stitches, so their shadow will lie in the sheet. A simple anchor, a running stag, a small key with an honest bow. We lay a new wire key on a board and press it flat. The stitches pierce the laid wires of the mold and come back with a twist that will never snag a finger. We close the chest. The key that opened it returns to its hook. This is the anchor. We are at the watermark chest, the lamp trimmed, the scale resting. If drowsiness visits, let it sit. The chest will keep its quiet secret. The vat room is warm. A copper boiler, vented to the ridge, keeps the pulp comfortable and the men from catching a chill. The vatman stands by the vat, the kucher stands by the felt stack, the layman waits with an armful of clean felts. 3 bodies, 1 pace. The mould and decal frame and frame live half in water, half in hands. The vatman dips, lifts, and shakes a small fore and aft tremor to settle fibers in an even web. He does not draw a picture. With the shake he calms an argument. We watch the sheet form in the mold. Water runs, fibers stay. The watermark sits where we set it, a lighter patch that will greet light later without ceremony. The vatman sets the decal, lifts the mold, and turns. The kucher steps in and receives the mold with a felt ready. A gentle roll of the wrists, a touch at the corner, and the newborn sheet kisses the felt and stays. The mold returns to the vat. The layman covers the sheet with another felt and resets the stack to the right height. None of this needs instruction now. The stack grows. Paper, felt, quiet geology. This is the press. A wooden screw stands above two plates. We slide the fresh poster stack of sheets and felts between them and bring the bar around with a slow shoulder. Water murmurs out of the stack into the channels cut for it. The screw learns when to stop by the way the bar answers the hands. We hold a count under our breath. 15, 20 turns, then wait. Wait does what speeches cannot. A girl lifts the pressed sheets with both palms under the felt. She does not pinch corners. She lays them on boards for a second, then carries them to the loft. The loft is a forest of lines strung under rafters, warm and dry. Each sheet hangs by two small wooden pegs that leave no permanent opinion on the paper. Air walks between the rows. Windows open by a hand's breadth and stay there, a treaty with weather. In the eaves, a lamp sits cold for an hour. By evening, we will trim its wick and bring it near the inspection table. This is the anchor line. We are at the loft lines. Pegs, boards, air, and patience. If your eyes close for a few heartbeats, the paper will not mind. Drying is the work that likes watchfulness least. Downstairs, a kettle simmers for sizing. We make a glue from trimmings and bones, skim, strain, and keep the broth clear. A handful of alum hardens the resolve. When sheets are dry to the touch, they bathe in the warm size and come up with a skin that will hold ink like a promise. We hang them again. Later we press them once more, so they will lie flat under a pen and not curl at the edges like bread left too long in the oven. This is the beating roll for fine work. The old trip hammers made good pulp. The roll makes a smoother one for writing. Its teeth are not sharp, its trough is honest. We weigh a charge on the small beam near the window. Rider set with 2 fingers, pointer resting at the line. We do not trust a guess to memory. The number keeps its face. The cutter trims edges with a long knife that rides a bar. The bar carries a scale stamped in whole, half, and quarter inches. The knife does not need to talk about precision. It lives it. Offcuts fall into a basket for packing or for the next batch of coarse stock. Nothing leaves the mill without a plan. Even dust finds a cloth to meet. This is the one image we keep for the chapter. Pulp in the vat turns slowly like a small, faint cloud remembering how to be rain. Then we return to ladders, pegs, and plates. In the finishing room, we count quires. 24 sheets to a quire, 20 quires to a ream. The old numbers keep their reasons to themselves, but they feel right in the hands. We stack for sheets, then four groups that ask less of fingers. We test for slip with a thumb on the corner-sized paper should whisper, not skate. A loose sheet tells us which felt was tired. We make a mark on the felt's tag and retire it to padding duty. This is the inspection table in the late afternoon. A lamp under a box of thin wood gives the tabletop a mild glow. We pass a sheet over the light and see the watermarker key lie inside the paper without pride. Fibers cross cleanly, clots and knots are rare. A dark speck now and then. We lift it with a needle if it sits, or leave it if removal would scar. The sheet returns to its place. The lamp turns down a breath, no soot. The clerk checks the stamp die for the mill mark. A small oval to blind emboss near the corner. He presses it into a sampler sheet. The oval rises, the edge is crisp, the mark is honest but shy. He cleans the die with a rag and puts it away in a drawer lined with felt. The drawer closes without a boast. This is the anchor. We are at the stamp drawer, the lamp, and the small beam. The key that opened the drawer returns to the nail. If sleep comes here, let it the mark or wait. A cart arrives with bundles of linen from a hospital. We do not consider stories, we consider quality. We sort, we weigh, We write. The ledger shows one more line, same hand, same span, same quiet numbers. A red seal on a chit nods to our receipt. The wheel outside turns in the race and speaks to the shaft. The trip hammers fall again, and water runs again, and nothing asks for applause. We replace a mold. Its laid wires have loosened at one corner after years of kindness. We pull to stitches and set new wire. Same gauge, same spacing. We check the decal fit, it lies snug and level. We brush the face with a soft broom to lift lint and lay the rest. The mold goes back to its hook. The hook lives where a hand expects it. This is the sizing kettle at evening. The surface holds a skin we lift and lay aside. We skim one more time and lower the flame. The lamp near the bench shows the same circle it has thrown 4 years. Its glass has learned one kind of hand, the one that wipes gently when warm, not when cold and temperamental. A schoolmaster from town arrives with a packet, a letter pressed in the middle of a quire of our paper. He lays the quire on the finishing bench and asks if the weight has changed. We weigh a sheet on the small beam. The pointer minds the line. We answer with the number he knows. He nods as if he had suspected his memory of being wrong, and is glad to forgive it. He pays for a ream and ties it with linen tape that opens kindly later. The seal on the knot bears a key, and to scales the wax calls and says nothing. This is the rag loft at nightfall. Bales sit against the wall on skids that keep them off damp. A key turns in the iron, hasp the door closes without a scene. The stamping room quiets to a final row of thuds, then rests. The wheel, obeying the sluice, slows. The sluice gate takes a turn down with a T-handle that has been in the same family of palms since the mill stood straight. The felt rack gets its own turn. We rinse felts in the side channel, lift them on a pole, and let them weep their water back to the race. A twist and the throw over the bar, and they will dry by morning. A worn felt becomes a packing felt, then a floor cloth, then a rag again. The circle does not insist on poetry, it merely behaves. This is the anchor line. We are at the sluice handle and the lamp. We turn the key on the rag door. We set the beam's rider to 0. If sleep has found you, lie comfortably, the wheel will not miss your watching. In the morning tomorrow, we are already half there. We will sort, soak, stamp, and lift again. We will check the quire count and set the screw. We will press the stack and listen for the press to answer with the right tone. We will take a sheet to the light and see the small key, the watermark, lie in it like a thought that never needed to be loud. For now, we wipe the table, lower the lamp to a bead, and let the room keep its own breath. The scales pointer sits at center. The drawers know their keys. The vat surface stills and shows a small, truthful circle of light where the horn shade throws it. Outside, the race keeps a tiny, last talk with stones and then rests. If sleep arrives, let it. The water will turn. When it is time, the mold will meet it, the work will wait. The 7th part. Hamburg, Speicherstadt, early 20th century. Evening tide at the canal edge. We draw back a door with iron straps, turn the warehouse key a quarter, and set a lamp on its hook above the hoist beam. The water below rises and falls against green brick, a measured breath that never asks for notice. This is the hoist floor. A trap opens to the canal, framed by a stout sill polished by rope. A chain winch lives on a beam with a timber nose that leans out over the water. Iron dogs brace the beams, foot wedges keep them honest. A rope sling waits coiled, a hook hangs with its gate closed, not because it is proud, but because that is how it learned to live. The lamp draws a shallow oval on the planks. Far away, a bell counts, not to wake anyone, only to keep itself. This is the anchor line. We are at the hoist beam above the evening water. If sleep has come near, let it sit. The rope knows its job without telling. We check the ledger at the beam post. The page shows today's parcels in short lines, coffee sacks, cocoa blocks, a crate of glass, and 3 bales of jute. A brass weight hangs from a nail to remind the wrist how much a mark feels like. It is not a standard, it is a memory. The ledger spine is rubbed smooth where a thumb made a habit. A red seal on the last entry says cleared in letters that never learn to shout. Below, a lighter bumps the quay without fuss. Its fenders are old rope stuffed with older rope. The lighterman lifts his cap toward no one in particular and brings the boat where the water wants the edge. A boy with a boat hook leans and catches the ring. His arm knows when to stop by the way the ring greets him. The line rises, meets the ring, and takes to turns that will open when asked. This is the canal mark on brick numbers set in iron, a simple ruler to tell the day what it is. Tonight the figures sit just below the 7 last week. After the storm, they kiss the 9. We glance, we do not perform arithmetic, the tide speaks plain without it. The lamp does not reach that far, the water keeps its own light. A customs clerk arrives with a satchel and a key on a chain. The key is longer than it needs to be, length helps a pocket find it by feel. He opens a small door in the post, marked with a crown the color of old copper. Bonded goods live on the 2nd floor, until a stamp says otherwise. He turns the lock once. The spring inside says yes with a soft spring sound that a person could come to like. This is the weighbridge room on the quay. The platform is a plate of wood edged with iron. A beam hides in a box under a glass window, its pointer resting at 0 like a needle that believes in its work. We test the empty balance with one finger on the plate. The pointer moves and returns. The beam trusts one ritual and has no use for more. A sack of coffee arrives in the sling. The winch turns. Chain climbs the wheel. The hook rises from the boat, with small links talking to one another. Up at the beam, we take the swing out with a hand against the sack, not to prove strength, only to help the hook find quiet. The sling takes a second turn and settles. The hoist beam does not creak. It remembers its braces. This is the anchor. We stand at the weighbridge, while the first sack rests on the platform. The pointer leaves 0 and slows at the line we expect. We write the number in 2 places, on the sack tag and in the book. The pencil's line is dark without being heavy. A stamp beside the number leaves a circle with a key and 2 scales in it. The wax that will receive this circle later warms in a jar that looks like a jar and does not ask to be anything else. We lift the sack again and carry it on a dolly toward the coffee floor. The dolly's tires are iron. The path is wood. The sound they make together is brief and small, like a coin setting down in a felt-lined tray. The corner clamps on the dolly turn without fuss. We do not lean our shoulders to it. We let weight roll where it already wants to go. This is the sampling bench. A trier and auger with slot slides into the seam of a sack and draws out a ribbon of beans. They fall into a tin like rain that forgot to hurry. A hand turns through them once. We are not tasting tonight. We look for stones, for twine, for a nail once in a season. The brass scoop weighs a handful on a small pond scale. Pond on the left, gram weights on the right. The pointer finds a line and sits there. We pull the handful back and tie the sack with flat tape that forgives wrists in winter. We mark a chalk line on the hoist post. See off he done. The sea like a half moon turned to mind its business. A crate of glass waits below. The sling takes a cradle of lats under the box, so pressure does not learn to shout from corners. The hook finds the ring again. Gate closed. The winch turns. 3 hands, 1 rhythm. 1 at the wheel, 1 at the post to check swing, 1 at the trap to pull the box inside when its weight becomes the floor's problem instead of the water's. This is the tally desk. Its top has a lip so papers do not travel of their own. A tin 4 seals sits near the lamp. A pot for string sits near the tin. A box 4 tags stays black with pencil dust. The customs clerk writes a number without flourish. He folds a duplicate, presses it under a glass paperweight, and leaves it. The glass is not art. It is heavy and clear. It is pleased to be both. The crate bears a stencil, fragile. We set it square on strakes so air can pass under. The strakes are common boards that became better by lying straight. We do not stack glass under coffee. We do not need a rule to remember that. The lamp makes one edge of the crate bright and the other shaded. That is the only drama the crate gets tonight. This is the smell of cocoa on a 2nd floor. It stays low, under the beams, satisfied. Blocks come wrapped in parchment and cloth. We weigh 1 out of 10 to keep the book honest. A scraper tests the edge. Cocoa takes light reluctantly. The knife tells us more than the eye does. The block returns to its place. The seal on its cord is not a warning, it is a promise that someone will know if the promise was invited to wander. We check the beam scales in the spice room. Pans sit level. The rider rests at 0. Nutmeg waits in a crate. Each nut in its own shell like a room that kept its corners. Cloves sit in a sack that leaks a little perfume through a remembered stitch. We do not open them tonight. We put a strip of paper over the seam and mark the date in numbers with a pencil that never grew up to be a pen. This is the anchor line. We are at the spice scales and the lamp. The key on the clerk's chain clicks once against the desk. When he shifts, it is not asking to be noticed. If your eyes close, let them. The ledger's column will stand straight in the morning. Down at the key, a bale of jute lifts, light compared to cocoa, but broader in the sling. We guide it to the door, then to the 3rd floor where our hands will not need to bend when they stack. The stack pattern is simple, cross, straight, crosshair finds paths between, weight finds kindness. We run a lath above the 3rd layer, so boots will not teach it a lesson in corners. This is the door lock on the hoist trap, a simple throw bolt with a square back. The bolt catches in a keep that smiles only because the smith who filed it liked to look at curves. The key for the trap is not a secret, the door itself is. We set the bolt when no rope is under it and test it with a knuckle. The door answers with one note, not a rattle. A small office looks west across the canal. Its window frames another block with hoist beams like ours, lamp ovals like ours, and small figures doing work that rhymes with ours, but does not repeat it. A table holds a tool ring binder paper, stitched to paper with brass. We prefer a stitched book that cannot shed pages when a sleeve forgets itself. The tool ring stays for copies. This is the one image for the chapter, tied under the floorboards, folds and unfolds like cloth laid by a patient hand on a long table. The light in the canal ripples up the brick. If the wall learned to read water without wanting to be seen, then we return to hooks, tags, and the short words of work. We replace a hoist rope. The old one shows glaze and flat spots where it learned to listen to the same pulley too long. We count threads, twist, and serve the eye with tarjan. The splice is a long one because short splices carry pride and regret in the same package. The long splice passes the pulley without a thought. A smear of tallow on the iron gives back more than it takes. This is the fire bucket line on the wall. 3 copper buckets hang by their ears, polished by knuckles that never cared for shine. A notice says which way to carry them, forward, not back, because water likes to ride ahead of the hand. We do not read the notice, we hung it for people we have not met yet. Habit walks the corridor alone. A coffee broker climbs the stair with a small scale folded in a leather case. He asks to weigh a sample. We gesture at a clear patch and stand aside. His gram weights are smooth as coins that never bought anything. He reads a number, writes a smaller one on a piece of thin card, and puts both away. He nods at the ledger, at the lamp, at the key on the chain. Not as praise, not as inspection, only as one neighbor sees another's garden and finds it tended. This is the anchor. We are at the ledger table. As the customs clerk closes his book for an hour, he turns the key in the safe where stamps sleep. It is a short key with a round bow, worn by the thumb. It turns once. The safe forgets to be interesting and becomes a box again. If sleep has made your head heavy, it is welcome the stamps will not wander. We change floors with a crate of paper from the Miller Priver. The crate rides a hand truck with iron skids that ask for planks at stairs. To men lay planks and keep their fingers away from edges that like to laugh. The crate arrives at a door marked with a chalk circle, our sign to ourselves that paper lives here. Inside, a scale with a finer beam measures stacks by quire. The pointer does not fidget paper, makes friends with balance better than beans do. This is the rope room. Coils hang by size and temper. Manila for the hoist, hemp for the sling, sisal 4 things that forgive damp. A bench holds a marlin spike, a serving mallet, a fid. We cut a new lanyard for a weight hook, splice an eye, and test it under the beam with a bag of sand that tells the truth without asking to be paid in beans or coin. We close the canal doors for a passing squall. Sluice boards set into grooves keep spray from teaching the floor to swim. The boards carry chalk mark spares of vertical lines that always face in, not out. Someone began that rule before our time. We follow it because finding the marks in the dark is easier when they face the lamp. This is the little stove in the corner. It glows low 4 hands that prefer not to shiver. Kettle, 2 mugs, a bag of sugar, a notebook for something that is not accounts. The notebook holds small names, a light repaired, a nail replaced, a rope replaced, a pulley oiled. It does not hold opinions. It holds deeds. We check the hoist beam's sole plate for crush. The dog bolt seat well, the wedges have not burned. A smear of chalk on the taper keeps the wedge from lying. The chalk tells an eye whether wood moved last week. It did not. The beam learned its place and stays there, like a sentence that knows where to end. This is the anchor line. We are at the beam again. Lamp above, rope true, water below, ledger at the post, key on the chain. If the body asks to drift, let it. Nothing here is waiting for applause. A barge shifts lower with the tide and takes a parting bump. The fender answers with a soft, honest thud. We lower the sling and send down the last bale. The hook gate opens, closes, opens, closes, polite as a clerk at a door. The lighterman raises his hand without needing us to count fingers. He will be back on the next tide. He prefers not to promise a time his river cannot keep. This is the customs box. A drawer holds seals, another holds stamps, a third holds the small lamp tool that trims wicks and keeps glass clean. The clerk's chain holds 2 keys. One opens the box, one the safe. He wears them where the hand can find them without a candle. He does not like to pat pockets. He understands how a room feels when a pocket has forgotten. At the end of the run, we sweep the hoist path and brush the chain. We check each link with a palm. Cold spots tell a story of thinning. Thick ones tell a story of grease left too long. This chain is simple, true, and ready for tomorrow. We hang the hook through the ring, so its mouth faces the wall. A habit that becomes a rule only when someone forgets. This is the bell at the corner of the floor. It is a small bell. It notes the hour with a short voice when the clock below offers the time up the stair. We do not powder it or name it. We pull its rope once to teach the floor that evening stands in the doorway. We go to the window and look down the canal. Lamps mark bridges. Shadows mark arches. On the facing wall, iron letters spell a block's name. Letters do not need crowns to speak well. They sit in their own weight on the brick and let a passer-by mind his feet. This is the closing walk. Lamp wicks turned down to a blue bead. The last ledger line written. The weighbridge pointer returned to 0. The chalkboard wiped to blank. The hoist trap set. The rope coiled with the lay. Not against it. The door bolts thrown. The keys counted with a thumb. 1 for the safe. 1 for the box. 1 for the door. 1 for the trap. The hand knows them by shape and does not need to look. We cross the quay to the small office by the gate. A watchman sits with a book that records who went in and who went out. He writes our names without ceremony. His lamp is shaded. His tea is warm. His key ring is larger than ours, but lighter in the hand. Most keys are thin and flat, for gates and cupboards. He nods. He knows our footsteps and which board complains near the 3rd post. He also knows when the board lies tonight it speaks true. This is the anchor, lamp on hook, scales at rest, keys back where they belong. Water under the planks says nothing anyone needs to answer. If sleep arrives, let it. The key will wait. The 8th part. Lüneburg Plain, 18th century. Grey morning at the brine works. We lift the bar from the little gate, turn the iron sluice key a quarter, and set a lamp under its tin shade along the catwalk. The channel answers with a slow, even run. Brine keeps its own temper when wood and stone remember their jobs. This is the graduation tower at first light. A wall of blackthorn bundles brush bound into lattice stands higher than a house, long as a field. Brine climbs by pump and falls by gravity. It trickles through twig and thorn, breaks into threads, and meets the wind with patience. Each drop loses a little water to air, the rest keeps its salt. The catwalk rails hold the damp in beads. The lamp throws an oval on wet wood. The brine speaks in a soft, steady syllable. We test the strength. A narrow jar, a hydrometer glass, rests in a wooden rack. We fill it from a tap and lower a floater glass spindle with a paper scale inside. It rises and settles. The line we trust meets the surface where we expect. Old hands still use an egg for a joke. If it lifts to the size of a coin, the boil will finish well. We note the number in the ledger and wipe the jar with linen that smells faintly of salt and smoke. This is the anchor line. We are on the catwalk above the brine face. Lamp and key live by the rail. The scale today afloat keeps us honest. If drowsiness leans your head, it is fine. The drop-by-drop work will keep its place. Down in the pump house, a beam walks between uprights. A pitman rod lifts and lowers leather buckets in a well. The beam centers are greased with tallow. The pins turn without complaint. We listen for the small wrong, a squeal, a clack, a tremor. None today. The flight of the beam is an even sentence without a comma out of place. A boy lays his palm to the pillar and feels the weight arrive, and go his hand learns more than his ear. We follow the channel to the pond house. The door takes a key, plain bow, square bit. We turn once. The lock answers with a wooden thought. Inside, 2 pans stretch side by side on brick hearths. Each pan is iron and wide. Its edges turned like a tray's lip, so a rake can find them by habit, not by sight. Above, damp rafters remember seasons. On a shelf, a row of shallow baskets, wicker hand barrows wait for wet salt to rest before it goes to dry on the loft. This is the pond edge. Brine enters by a small weir. The surface shivers. Heat pushes from below. Steam moves up and away in a clean, pale drift. A long rake, a wooden haft with an iron frame and slats, draws crystals from the middle to the side in slow, even pulls. The rake does not hurry. Salt grows if you let it. It sulks if you shout. We pull and set, each stroke the length of a breath. At the corner stands a beam scale with iron pans, stubborn and calm. We weigh a wicker basket of wet salt against a brass weight that remembers the buyer's promise. The pointer leaves 0, bows, and returns. We chalk the figure on a slate, then write it in the ledger with a hand the night clerk will thank. A small box holds coin weights for visitors who argue by memory and leave by balance. This is the anchor line. We are at the pan and the scale. The lamp under its shade keeps the table in its oval. The key lives on a nail by the door, bow to the left, teeth to the right. If your eyes fall half shut, welcome. The pan makes no sudden moves. A woman with leather mitts carries a skimmer, a shallow hold cup, and lifts the bitter mother liquor from the corner where it collects. The skimmer's edge rests against the lip. She tips, lifts, and lays the thin sheen into a jar. Too much bitten, and the salt keeps a damp temper. Too little, and the crystals turn coarse. She watches without talking. The jar's glaze looks like water turned to stone. It knows heat and forgives it. Along the north wall sit firewood and peat. Wood smells young and green, peat smells older and even. To iron pokers lean against the hearth. A man opens the small fire door, feeds in a measured arm, and closes it. The door becomes a line again. He brushes ash toward a scuttle and lifts it by a ring that warms without burning. The scuttle's mouth meets a bin where ash calls, and later will meet paths when weather asks. This is the loft where salt dries. Boards run under rafters, lines stretch like a ship's rigging, and baskets rest at an angle to shed. A window on each gable keeps wine from choosing favorites. We set a basket down onto laths, so air passes all around. A finger pressed to the heap learns if the grain is still gummy. If so, it sits. If not, it goes to the bagging bench. Nothing here explains itself loudly. Everything has time. On a table near the window, a tin holds red wax, and a small stamp lies face up. The work's marker key crossed with a beam. When bags are tied with flat hemp tape, the tape meets wax, the wax meets stamp, and the circle calls. It is not a show, it is how a road recognizes a parcel without reading it loudly. This is the pump well ledger. A line for each hour, a number for the lift, an initial for the man who kept the beam fed with grease. The book lives in a box with a sliding lid. The lid likes to swell on wet days. A thin smear of soap keeps it civil. The key to the box is so small, 'tis more habit than metal. It turns, and the box becomes the ledger again. We send a man to the graduation tower to lift a gate. He carries the long iron key, a windlass with a square socket over a shoulder. The gate spindle lives in an iron frame with numbers scratched by bored hands. 1 turn, 2. He sets the socket, leans, and wind passes from frame to brine. The trickle fattens, the smell deepens, the tower answers by doing its work more. This is the one image we keep for the chapter. On blackthorn twigs, the brine writes white commas, tiny salt beards that grow in the crosswind, and glint once when the lamp's oval meets them. Then we return to rakes, pans, and the little books of numbers. A cooper in a leather apron mends a tub hoop outside. He lifts the hoop onto a dog, a low bench with pegs, sets his driver, and gives 3 modest blows. The hoop tightens. He tests the joint with water from a dipper. No dark line appears, the tub keeps its opinion. Coals in his brazier give a small, orange answer without smoke. This is the brine cellar below the pond house. Stone walls are cool, the channels, sound comes through stone as a hum that respects sleep. A sluice gate sits in a groove cut in oak. We draw it a hand's width, not more. A scale stick notched and rubbed smooth slides into a pocket along the channel wall. The notch that lived with autumn sits at the surface. We note it. We do not argue with seasons, we meet them. Upstairs again, a foreman checks the brine strength with the float. Numbers are small and even lines are close, but not crowded. He reads without squinting. He lets the float settle on the bench, so glass does not meet stone. He writes the number again. 2 places in ink, 1 in chalk. That is enough to survive a drop jar and a gust of opinion. This is the anchor line. We stand by the float, the pan, and the scale. The lamp breathes without complaint. The key on the nail does not move. If sleep arrives now, give it room, the brine will not climb out of the jar while you rest. A carter arrives at the door with a flat wagon. Its wheels have rope above the iron rim for quiet over cobble. He lifts a sack onto the beam scale. We balance it, we ticket it, we press the wax, we set it square. He throws a canvas over the stack and ties the tapes with knots that prefer to open by thumb, not tooth. He takes the ledger, reads his line, nods, and gives the pencil back nib first. This is the test for grit. A glass plate, a pinch of salt, and a brass roller. We roll once if the plate keeps its clear. The salt kept its manners. If not, the rake needs a softer hand or the brine a slower boil. Today the glass shines when we wipe it. We put the plate back in its sleeve and the sleeve in the drawer, front to front, so any hand can find it in dusk. The pond hand trims a spillway with a wooden knife freely, a thin board with a square edge. He scuffs a crust back into the middle, smiles as the middle gives it back as crystals we prefer, and lays the knife on a peg. Tools do not learn the floor unless we are careless. Care is cheaper than iron. This is the store for mother seed crystals that teach the pan to grow polite cubes. They live in a jar in a cool corner. We loosen the lid and pour a finger's worth into the still, then stir with a barley straw that never complains. The pan answers with a small, grainy snow at the edge. The snow grows into a season in 10 minutes. We watch for a count of 20, then go back to the rake. A boy carries 2 buckets of weak brine from the wash where sacks were cleaned. He does not pour it into the channel. He takes it to a trough that feeds the fire, where steam will lose it without argument. Waste that returns as water does not insist on being recorded. We record it anyway with a mark in the margin. WC waste counted. The book has room for such honesty. This is the anchor. We are at the figure board, 3 columns, no flourishes, brine strength, baskets drawn, baskets dried. The lamp makes the ink look thicker than it is. The key box waits closed. If your breathing lengthens, the board will stay still. We change a rake slat. The oak tongue splits at the screw. We back the screw out with a driver that knows the slot. The new slat sits in the frame snug. A hair of pitch on the thread keeps water from creeping down and teaching rust to speak. We tighten only until wood knows it is held. We do not teach screws to bully. The pan gives us one hissing remark when a drop meets a hotter place. We back the fire a shade. The hiss learns manners again. Above the hearth, a thermometer lives in a tin sheath. It reads in degrees that the oldest hands ignore. They read with ear and iron wrist and understand the number anyway. This is the brine yard outside. Along the channel a row of little gates with square heads, 4 keys. Each head wears a number cut shallow. The numbers keep peace between pans when wine plays favourites across the tower. We lift one gate a finger and let the next fall, so both pans keep the same temper. The carpenter who cut the heads made the same square for each. The key is 1 key. At midday, a baker from the town walks in with a ledger of his own. He pays for 2 sacks by weight. He pinches a pinch, tastes, and nods. He writes his line, name, figure, mark. His hand is as small and sure as ours. It is the sort of line that bread likes. He carries a key on his belt for his flour store and taps it against his pocket. The way a man checks a friend is still beside him. This is the one sound we keep for the hour. The rake's frame stirs the pan long in, slow across, long out, and the crystals whisper like dry sand, learning to be a dune. Then we return to scales and locks and a narrow jar. In the afternoon, we swap the lot of blackthorn nearest the pump. Thorns lose their edge after seasons. New bundles make better wind. We unlace the old with a hook, catch the ties, and lay them in a cart for the ash pit. The new bundles sit tight in their frames. Water finds them eager. Salt speaks on them in smaller syllables again. We tie the last knot with a fisherman's bend that prefers to remember how to behave. This is the bagging bench. Dry salt on the boards looks like quiet weather that decided to sit. We lift it with wooden spades, pour it through a horn into a sack, and tap the sack twice, so the corners learn their shape. A beam scale keeps each sack a promise. The rider knows the exact place to rest. We tie with flat tape, press the seal, and lay the sack on crosslats. Air under, air around, no damp boxed in. A clerk opens the small safe and brings out the stamp book. The safe's key is round-bowed, bright where a thumb believes in it. He turns it once. The book shows the month's marks, which pans boiled which days, which cart carried which sacks, which storm asked us to rest the fire. He adds today's numbers, then sets the book back where it cannot fall. He counts the keys with his thumb. Door, safe, box, gate. He sets each on its nail and forgets them happily. This is the anchor line. Lamp on hook, scale pointer straight, keys on nails, pan breathing even. If sleep has settled, keep it. The salt will not change shape while you are away. Evening learns the beams. The pan slows to a simmer. The rake finds the last corners. The bitten jar holds enough for tomorrow's lesson. We damp a broom and drag it along the brick to settle dust. We clean the flowed glass. We label a basket with a card and a string that will untie easily when a sleepy hand tugs it. We draw the fire door closed and the needle falls a degree. It is the softest kind of dusk. Outside, wind combs the graduation wall. The catwalk boards keep their damp shine. The channel surface reflects the lamp once, then forgets it. The pump beam lowers its voice. The bucket takes one last climb and rests. We set the sluice key back to its line. 1 mark, not 2. The mark is a scratch that never needed to be pretty. This is the closing walk. The ledger line grows its period. The slate shows no sums, only the words pan settled. The beam scale's rider returns to 0. The hydrometer lies in its rack. The stamp returns to its box. Face up so no grit will find it. The broom sits bristles up, the shovel lies flat. The hook hangs with its point turned to the wall. The bitten jar's cork seats with a quiet push. We lock the pond house. The key turns without learning to be dramatic. The pump house door lifts and sets on its latch. The graduation gate key slides into its receiving hook. The lamp flame lowers to a blue bead and then to a memory. Wind still rides on thorn brine, still moves without a witness. Boards underfoot keep yesterday's footprints and make room for tomorrow's. This is the anchor. Lamp, scales, key, our 3 quiet things seen once more and then allowed to be furniture again. If sleep arrives, let it. Salt grows in the dark as willingly as in the day. Morning will find the brine where we left it and the work where it knows to wait. The 9th part. Nuremberg, late 18th century. Morning in a narrow shop with green glass windows. We lift the latch, turn the door key a quarter, and set a lamp under its horn shade, so the bench holds an oval of steady light. Shelves breathe out dry time and orange peel drawers remember roots, and bark glass shows faint bubbles that keep stories to themselves. This is the balance table. Two beam scales sit side by side, a fine one under a bell jar for powders, a stouter one for parcels. The knife edges are clean, the pans rest even. We tip the bell jar, lift it with a cloth at the rim, and set it down without tapping. Nesting weights wait in a brass box, little cylinders inside larger ones, each with a wire handle like a small ear. Leaf weights thin, flat slivers for grains. A grain is a tiny unit, the weight of a barley kernel. Sleep in a felt-lined tray. We set the rider to 0 and test the empty balance. The pointer floats, bows once, and comes back to the line. This is the anchor line. We are at the balance under the lamp. The keys on their ring sit where any hand can see them. Drawer key, cupboard key, poison key. If your breathing has slowed, keep it, the pointer will hold your place. We read the physician's slip, folded small and held by a red thread. A cordial, a simple syrup, a calming tea. The writing is neat and sensible. We stack the tasks by heat. Cold infusions first, warm waters later, the still last. We open 3 drawers with wooden pulls that carry names in a quiet hand: chamomilla, foniculi, tilia. Inside, paper packets sit like envelopes that never needed to travel. We do not stir the whole drawer. We lift the front packet and let the rest keep their line. This is the herb board. A sheet of clean paper lies on a slate tile that remembers years of small cuts. We weigh chamomile heads to the scruple. A scruple is a small apothecary unit. 3 of them make a dram. Pour them into a warm jar and cover with water that just stops steaming in a copper kettle. The lid sets with a simple glass weight. We make a pencil mark. Time up, time down. The pencil has no reason to raise its voice. The water will learn the flowers without argument. We turn to the stout balance. Sugar sits in a stoneware jar. Its lid has a cork that has learned the jar's rim. We weigh for syrup. 1 measure sugar to 1 measure water by weight. The pan takes sugar. The rider walks to the mark. The pointer rests. We pour the sugar into a copper pan and add water from the beam's honest promise. Heat, but not a boil. We stir with a horn spatula, not a metal spoon. Horn does not teach sugar to crystallize out of spite. When a thread forms between 2 fingers and lets go politely, we stop. A drop of lemon keeps the syrup from thinking too highly of itself. We set the pan on a wood trivet and let steam leave without drama. This is the poison cupboard. It lives behind the counter, lock under a small arch. The key has a round bow and a short square bit. It lives on a separate ring that the hand feels by shape, not by guess. We open the door because the list says 2 grains of powdered foxglove for a tincture that a physician will dilute again and again. We say the name in our head, not out loud. We weigh a whisper on the fine balance under the bell jar. The palm trembles. The pointer finds the exact line. The bell jar returns. The door closes. The key turns. The key comes back to the ring. The cupboard forgets to be interesting. This is the anchor. We are at the cupboard, the balance, and the key. The lamp keeps its circle. If sleep leans closer, let it. The lock will not wander while your eyes are closed. At the pill tile, a slab of white porcelain with a lip. We measure a powder that asks for patience. We add drops from a glass rod, turn with a spatula, gather, and turn again. The powder becomes paste. Paste becomes a calm, even mass. A rule with grooves cuts the mass into equal lines. A small roll turns each into a round that will dry on a tray dusted lightly with starch. A pill round should neither shine with oil nor crack with pride. We test one under a finger. It yields and returns. This is the mortar bench. Porphyry mortar. Stone and heavy, its pestle sits in its lap like a tool that found its chair. We grind seeds with a dry circle. The sound is low and sandy. We sift the powder through a silk stretched on a frame, a bolting cloth. The fine passes. The course returns to the mortar without ceremony. A hand bellows, puffs, wants to wake the silk. We do not beat it. The powder rests in a folded paper that names itself with a pencil line and a date. We measure spirits on a small glass hydrometer, a floating scale for strength. The higher it floats, the stronger the spirit. The bulb sits in a cylinder, the stem shows shy numbers. We write 2 of them, one for the book, one for the cork tag that will not live long. The spirit lamp on the bench sips alcohol under a water bath and keeps a gentle heat. The blue flame stands like a thought that forgot to be loud. We trim its wick with a small scissor, not because the flame misbehaved, but because care belongs to the quiet. This is the anchor line. We are at the spirit lamp and the water bath. Lamp, scales, key. If your head nods, you may let it. The bath never boils without being asked. In the back room, the still waits on its block, copper belly, onion head, and a condensing coil that knows how to forgive a night's call. We charge the alembic with appeals and herbs water, orange, lemon, a breathing of rosemary. The lid seats with a paste of rye flour and water, a simple seal that will flake away later. We set cooling water running through the coil from a stone jar on a shelf, high enough for a small, stubborn flow. The first drops fall into a glass that stands honest and thick. The room honors them by not naming them. They join a bottle with a cork that knows to stand only halfway until the last warmth of the day becomes less certain. We step back to the counter. A boy with an apron from a bakery stands with a paper in his hand. He asks for vinegar of roses and a spoon for the house. We weigh roses from a jar, petals soft as a folded letter, and set them in wine vinegar in a dark bottle. We tie a label to its neck with twine and write a line that even a hasty eye will obey. The spoon goes into a paper sleeve. He pays with a coin that sits in the tray without announcing itself. He nods and is gone by the time the door latch thinks to speak. This is the drawer of papers, blue, white, and a brown that likes to fold. We make powder packets by habit. Fold left, fold right, fold up, fold down. The folds keep themselves shut because they were shown how. A quill pen writes 3 words and a mark. The mark is small. The words are not clever. They point a future hand to the right T without asking for applause. We check the marjoram, which came yesterday. Leaves brittle, stalks soft. We rub between fingers and watch the pieces. If they fall as even flakes, the herb is ready to serve. If fibers cling, more drying is needed. The drawer returns to itself. The label faces out. The pulls sit straight. We are fond of straight pulls. When lamps are low and old eyes prefer obvious kindness. This is the anchor. We are at the drawers and their labels. A scale rests at 0. A lamp burns the same shape. A key lies on a nail. If sleep visits, it will find the labels tidy. A messenger from the town surgeon's house asks for lint and a roll of bandage. Lint lives in a bin near the stove, linen ravelled by hand until it forgets its weave. We weigh a bundle for the book and roll a bandage on a wooden core that knows the width without thinking. The roll sits firm, but not tight. The edge does not climb. The cloth gives more than it takes. We seal the roll with a paper band that will tear gently when the hand asks. This is the tincture shelf. Glass rises in even shoulders. Corks sit with their hats flat. We turn each bottle a quarter, not to look busy, but to keep sediment from pretending to own a corner. Labels live in pairs. Latin name, German name, strong hand, small flourish. We test a drop on a slip of glass to see if time has played. The color answers the same way it did last week. The book will be glad to write no change. At the back of the shop, a small press with a screw and 2 plates binds herb bundles and paper stacks, so they travel to the loft as one obedient packet. We lay a stack between boards, turn the screw with a T-handle up, knot down the thread learned that way and the boards hold. We tie the packet with tape, set a seal in wax that someone else will see and not remark on, and note the number in the day's line. Numbers ride in columns like quiet geese. They do not need shepherding. This is the one image we keep for the chapter. Sunlight through green bottle glass throws small ovals of river color on the oak counter. They move a finger's width as the morning advances, then vanish like footprints on brushed nap. Then we return to spoons, papers, and the short names of work. A traveling merchant brings a case of jars and a proposal that speaks louder than the room likes. We listen without flinching. We choose 10 jars, We weigh one against the maker's claim on the stout balance. Our number is lower. We show him without smirk. He lowers his voice. We write a figure in the book, and we mark to jars to return. He leaves with his hat on, and his shoulders even. The shop remembers his footsteps for a door length, and then forgets. This is the pestle again. We grind cinnamon sticks for a sachet. The mortar takes steady. Even turns the pestle answers with a sound like leather on stone. We add a little sugar to help powders be friends. A sieve flirts and stops the fine rests, the coarse returns. We package the sachet and tie it with thread that matches nothing and pleases no one, but it does not come undone. The scale nods. The lamp does not change its mind. The clock in the hall tells the hour with a wooden voice. We do not run to greet it. We set a kettle on to boil for the still. The kettle knows when to announce itself without boasting. We fold to paper cones for the funnel and tuck them into the drawer front. A cone, like a habit, should be within reach. This is the anchor. We are at the book. The page shows time, item, weight, coin, and name. The lines are short. The words are ordinary. If sleep arrives, the page will not take it personally. A child arrives with a grandmother. They ask 4 lemon drops from the apothecary jar and a little advice on wind in the chest. We count the drops into a paper twist. We suggest warm water, rest, and time. We weigh nothing. We sell very little. Some days the scale's honesty is to be still. The grandmother nods as if she had known the conclusion and wanted only to hear it in a careful room. We open the small chest with a key that belongs only to the chest. Inside live the coin weights for distant money and a few stamped seals for the courts when a sample must be taken away with its promise intact. We check a coin from a traveller against its weight and a plain line at the edge. The coin meets both. We nod. The chest closes. The key returns to its nail. Nails are good at telling us if something has slipped. This is the syrup again. We run it through cloth into a stoneware bottle, tie a parchment label, and set it in the basket for delivery afternoon. The bottle's cork knows its place. We paint it with a brush that has not seen anything but cork and thin glue since last autumn. A full bottle weighs what the book expects. The balance carries more than powder. It carries our habit to the next table. At the tea bench, we set cones with different blends, fennel with anise, linden with rose, chamomile alone. Each cone receives a note in a hand that passes through walls without confusing anyone. We set the cones under a little glass to keep the room's gentle dust from learning a new trick. A jar of barley water cools nearby its surface, shows a skin that we lift and lay aside, not because it lies, but because it would teach the wrong mouthfeel to a thirsty child. This is the anchor line. We are at the counter, the lamp, the scales, the key. If your eyes have closed and opened again, you miss nothing. The balances remember better than we do. We clean the pestle with a brush and a cloth. Not water. Water remembers smell too well. We tip the mortar into a paper and tap its heel with a knuckle. The last powder falls out of habit, not fear. We fold and label. We tidy the tile with a damp cloth and a dry cloth and leave no lint on the lip. A clean edge is a promise to the next hand. Across the room, an albarello jar, a tall, wasted pharmacy jar, takes a new label where the old flaked. We write the name in a clear hand and tie a string that will let a future clerk replace the paper without teasing a glued shard off the glaze. The jar returns to its notch. Notches tell jars which way they face. Jars tell hands where to stop. This is the ledger for the still. A short list: peels, rosemary, spirit, water, hour. We write the run in, run out, and the proof. The numbers live in a column that looks like a river when you squint. We do not squint. We add a period, not a flourish. The period is enough. Afternoon steps in without tapping. A tinsmith arrives with a small funnel. We asked him to solder. He places it on the scale without being told. We weigh it and write the number in pencil under its brim, inside where no splash will reach. He nods as if relieved of a small doubt he didn't name. We pay him with coins that live in a drawer lined with felt. They sit without clatter. Metal should be modest among plants. This is the one sound we decide to remember. The bell jar's faint kiss when it meets the board around a fine balanced glass on wood. a promise that nothing gusty will visit the powders. Then, we go back to pages and spoons and keys. Late in the day, we receive a crate with dried gentian, licorice, and juniper. We open it with a knife that learned not to slip under rope. We weigh a handful of gentian, it rises clean on the pan. We write the number. We test licorice by bending it should crack in a quiet, certain way. It does. We roll juniper between fingers, it leaves a friendly resin. The crate accepts our verdict and loses its corners to the firewood stack in the yard. This is the anchor. We are at the back door with the yard key. The key turns once the hinge learns something about oil and says thank you in an accent that never leaves. If sleep has come to the edge of your chair, do not wake fully. The door will not forget. We tidy the still, coil emptied, head wiped, belly aired. The paste on the seam flakes away like a soft scab. We sweep and keep the sweepings for the ashman who likes to find copper dust in his world. We cover the spirit lamp and let the flame sigh. We clean the hydrometer cylinder and tilt it to dry, not upright where a ghost of water would wait for morning. This is the closing walk. Pans empty and dry, balances resting at 0, bell jar down, labels faced, drawers shut with their pulls straight. The counters carry only what they should: a lamp, a ledger, a clean tile. The poison key returns to its hook, the cupboard passes back into wood. The front door key turns, the lamp lowers to a blue bead, and then to a thought. The shelves keep their dry breath. We lean the broom in its corner, air bristles up, so the floor will not teach it curves. We turn the door sign from open to wood. We let the latch settle without clack. We listen once to the room in case it asks for something. It does not. It prefers regular time to nouns. This is the anchor. Lamp, scales, key seen, counted, and left to their work. If sleep arrives now, let it. Remedies do their best when rooms are quiet. Morning will find the balances where we left them, the labels legible, the jars in their notch, and the keys where a hand expects them. The 10th part. Franconia, late 18th to early 19th century. Evening at a post house on the main road. We lift the latch, turn the counter key a quarter, and set a lamp behind its horn shade, so the writing table shows a small, obedient circle. Outside, hoofs find the gravel with a softened rhythm inside. Paper, wax, and leather wait their turns. This is the postmaster's table. A narrow beam scale stands to the left, pans bright from cloth and habit. A nest of weights sits in a brass box, drams and ounces, little cylinders with wire ears. A second, stouter scale lives farther back for parcels. The ledger lies open, 3 columns, and a margin for small truths. A stamp with the town's mark rests on felt. The lamp breathes evenly, the glass is clean, because someone cared after dusk yesterday. We open the mail cabinet with a key the hand knows in the dark. Round bow, square bit, a nick on the shank where a file once slipped. Pigeonholes hold letters bound with twine and tagged with places: Augsburg, Regensburg, Bamberg, names that carry distance without bragging. Sealed packets sit deeper, wrapped in oiled paper against damp. We count them aloud just once, not for drama, but so memory will have a partner. This is the anchor line. We are at the table with lamp, scales, and key. If sleep has stepped closer, let it, the column will wait where we left it. The relay yard murmurs. A boy loosens a girth and lifts a damp pad with 2 careful hands. The hostler checks fetlocks with a thumb, finds no heat, and nods. Collar, trace, and breeching hang where nails expect them. A bucket stands by the pump, rope wound on its handle, so it will not chatter. Oil on a rag visits each snap. Link leather answers with a low, grateful shine. Inside, we weigh letters. A folded sheet sits on the left pan. The rider walks the beam, the pointer bows, thinks, and returns. We write a figure that a sleepy clerk will be glad to read. Place, weight, fee. The fee box holds coins on felt, so sums never clink for the wrong ears. A diagonal pencil mark crosses the upper corner of each letter when the stamp is paid. Diagonal means paid. Vertical means to be settled at the far desk. The hand that taught us that rule did not need to be loud. A messenger brings a pouch from the road. The pouch is leather with a brass mouth, and a lock that lives on a separate key. We open it with the same quarter turn that opens every post lock on this line. Sameness is part of the work. We tip the letters onto the table, palm the pouch to be sure a caller did not hide one, and lay it back open so the leather will forget folds that do not help. This is the sealing bench. A tray holds sticks of red wax, a candle, and a press with a steel face cut with the crest and name. We warm the wax over the flame, lay a bead across a string, and set the face once with a steady, vertical hand. The seal calls to a quiet gloss. A slip in the ledger meets the packet's name. A pencil draws a line from one to the other. Lines are best when they lead forward and stop where they should. The coach horn hangs on a peg by the door, a small loop of metal and habit. It is not for noise tonight, the road knows we are here. The timetable chalkboard on the front wall shows to routes and 3 times in a hand that will not confuse a man in the rain. We rub out last week's faint and leave only today. North Road 2nd bell, South Road 3rd bell. The clock above the board speaks with a wooden voice every quarter. Its pendulum keeps a polite arc. We wind it with a key that fits only it and no other thing. This is the anchor. We stand by the chalkboard and the clock. If your eyes are heavy, keep them so the hands will meet their marks whether you watch or not. A traveller asks for a seat to Ansbach. We pull a card from the drawer. Distance, coach class, fare. The data presses a clean ring in the corner. The date sits true. We write his name where a guard can read it in lamplight, not more. His trunk goes to the scale, and then to the luggage rack. Straps crossed and buckles lying flat, tongues tucked, so they will not tease. The guard's ledger takes the number. A chalk hand writes the same on a slate in the coach door. To places remember one weight. That is how forgetting stays small. We open the map case with a short key and lift the route stripper ribbon map that shows each post house, milestone, and water stop along this reach. The guard runs a finger from here to there, touching hills that are really numbers, bridges that are really time. He folds the strip back into itself and returns the case to its hook. The hook does not mind routine, prefers it. At the far table, a press 4 lead seals waits, jaws parted. Some sacks like wax, some sacks like lead. We thread a cord through a soft disc, bring the jaws together, and the relief bites. Town, line, year. Lead is honest about pressure. We press, test, and write. The sack knows it will be believed later by a hand that was not here. This is the warm drink bench by the stove, kettle, tin mugs, a jar of chicory, and a tin of sugar whose lid knows one turn exactly. The guard's cup sits left, the driver's right. A boy's cup waits near the handle so hands will not cross. We count spoons as we count letters. Small counts done right keep big counts from needing speeches. The coach rolls under the arch. The lamp at the ark's crown throws an oval on the coach roof paint, leather, iron hoops all calm. The driver steps down, checks the lamp brackets, and wipes soot from a lens with a corner of linen. The guard sets the coach key, a thick iron bar that lives on a chain, into the rear door and tests the bolt. It slides, rests, and forgets the word jam. The padlock on the strong box kisses its hasp and nods. This is the one image we keep. A smear of lamplight riding the brass of the coach lantern lens like a coin set on still water, steady for a breath, then gone when the driver moves. Then we return to straps, stamps, and the hand that meets the wheel. We weigh the post bag for the North Road on the stout scale. Pan down, pointer up, rider to the mark. The mark agrees with the book. The guard signs the line with a name that knows its letters, not flourishes. He threads the bag to the coach rail and sets the strap flat. He checks the horn for a dent that was not there. He does not find one. This is the anchor line. We are at the stout scale with the bag, lamp, scales, key. If sleep has already settled, the bag will not learn to be heavy while you rest. Horses change in order. Trace pins up, pole strap off, collar lifted, pad switched, tail through crupper by habit, not explanation. A boy hands a sponge, a man wipes sweat salt from leather where it could teach a crack. Buckles close on the second hole because the second hole fits most evenings. On cold nights, it is the third. The strap remembers and says nothing. We stamp a time on a card and slip it into the guard's board. The board carries 3 holes, one for the card, one for the key, one for a pencil. Each hole keeps its edge. Each edge says here to a hand that has learned not to look. The guard breathes out and smiles with one half of his face. He prefers when tools tell him where to go. On the counter, letters to the same direction gather under a slate with a chalk arrow and the town name. Chalk can smudge, we keep the arrow short and the town name steady. We cover the pile with a sheet of paper when the door opens to keep weather from reading without permission. We tie the packet when the hand is free, not before. String is a small mercy we can save for the right minute. This is the side room with the lock boxes, 4 doors, each with a different keyway, each with a slot that eats paper and does not spit. We test one door with its key, left hand on the bow, right on the box, so the hinge will not learn to shout. Inside, receipts that will not be needed tonight, coin rolls to blank seals, and the little book that tracks which box was opened, when and by whom. We write, close, and turn. The key returns to the ring returns to the nail returns us to the counter. The night grows an edge. A farmer brings a small crate of eggs wrapped in straw to center stops. We set the crate on the parcel scale. The pointer hesitates, then tells the number that will keep the far desk from sighing. We paint a small arrow on the crate to tell a sleepy hand which side should face up. Arrows are best when they make themselves small. A woman passes in with a folded shawl and a letter tucked like a blade in the fold. She asks for sealing and a line on the ledger. We weigh, stamp, and press. She watches the seal, not us. She leaves with the letter lifted between 2 fingers, as if weight could teach it to step. This is the anchor. We stand by the sealing tray. The lamp circle keeps wax honest. The key lies with its bow to the right, teeth to the left. The habit that keeps hands from turning in the air. If sleep leans your head to one side, let it, the press will not forget its face. We sweep sand from the counter into a tin. It dries ink that prefers not to wait. A small funnel lives inside the tin lid, so sand can go back to the horn without hunting corners. We write 3 lines, route, load, hour. The pen lifts and lays. The book turns a page without catching. Pages that never catch were cut with a sharp knife by an even hand. The driver checks the brake with the guard, a lever down, a chain taut, a wheel block biting a tire with the right light insistence. He releases it and hears a tiny tick where the pin rests in its notch. That tick is a friend. We like tools that say one syllable at the right time. The coach lamp wicks lower a finger, their chimneys clear to pale, then to quiet. We pack the last pouch, lock, pull, test. The guard sets his foot on the step and his hand on the rail. He takes the board. He takes the key. He takes a breath that tastes of oil, leather, and the road's unshowy promise. This is the horn again. It lives on its peg and comes down for one careful note that travels just far enough to wake a gate and not a child. The gate in the yard opens, the coach rolls. The lamps draw 2 coins on the cobble and lose them where the road turns. The hooves find their pace. The harness finds its silence. We return to the table. The scales rider settles back to 0. The lamp's wick turns down a fraction. The cabinet key meets its hole as any day. We count. Letters left for morning. Parcels for the first light coach. 3 forms for the court to sign. We cover the pile with clean paper and a stone the size of a pocket. This is the one sound we keep for this end. The lid of the brass weight box closes with a leather clicker, soft consent that tells the night we have left the table tidy. Then we go back to locking, winding, and the line in the book. We lock the front with a bar that lives on to brackets. The bar knows the wall and the wall knows the bar. The window shutters tilt and settle. The arch lamp lowers to its smallest blue bead and rests. The yard gate key hangs where the hand expects a finger, tests it in the dark and lets it be. This is the anchor, lamp on hook, scales at rest, key on nail. If sleep arrives now, let it. The road will keep its schedule. Morning will find the board, the chalk, and the coach where they should be. The 11th part. Upper Bavaria, late 19th century. Before sunrise, the yard holds a clean frost, and the brewhouse windows glow dull as coins under cloth. We lift the bar, turn the cellar key once in a lock that likes the quarter turn and not more, and set a lamp behind its horn shade, so the malt bench keeps a steady oval of light. The mill waits, belt slack. Barley in sacks sits square against the wall, each tied with flat tape, and the tag that minds its figures. This is the malt scale at first light. A beam with iron knife edges rests at 0. Brass riders sleep on their notches. We hoist a sack, cut the tape with a knife that has learned not to slip, and pour barley into the pan until the rider meets the mark. The pointer floats, bows once, and returns. We write the number on the tag, and in the grist book grain in. Grain out same hand that will make the kettle book honest later. A second, stouter scale stands for coal and ice. It has its own rider and its own memory. This is the anchor line. We are at the malt scale, under the lamp, the cellar key back on its nail. If your breathing has slowed, keep it, the pointer will hold your place. The steeping cistern accepts barley as calmly as a sink accepts plates. Fresh water covers the grain by a hand's breadth. The wooden paddle stirs it wants to lift dust. We set a stick across the rim with a cloth tied in the middle. When the cloth darkens to a ring, the steep is ready for airing. 3 hours. Lift and drain. 3 hours. Water again. We do not shout at time, we make room for it. On the germination floor, the grain lies to fingers deep on stone. Windows sit a hand's width open. Not wider, a louver board listens to wind and tilts in a way that keeps drafts useful instead of proud. We turn the couch with wooden shovels that sound like slow surf against a key. Rootlets learn to reach acrospires, learn to stay modest. A thermometer lives in a brass sheath, a hand lives in a sleeve. The hand knows warmth first, the thermometer writes it down, so the night clerk can trust the day. This is the kiln room. Haircloth stretches over the tiles below. A small fire lives in a brick box. We feed coke, not too much, not too little. A damper plate slides with a rod and shows a mark scratched by someone who's careful. I taught metal to remember. The green malt goes up in baskets, the dried comes down with a sound like dry snow. We taste one kernel sweetness more than starch and break another to see white inside without glassiness. The shovel returns to its nail. The nail respects a tool that returns. This is the anchor. We stand by the kiln damper and the lamp. The scale by the door reads sacks for the log. The key is back on the nail where a sleepy hand expects it. If drowsiness covers your eyes for a breath, the damper will stay where we left it. We crack the malts at the mill, not to flour but to grits that forgive water. The belt finds the pulley, the stones turn without argument. The grist flows in a dry ribbon into the sack below. We check the crush with fingers, husk mostly whole. Endosperm in pieces no smaller than a pinhead. A2 fine grist is a sulk that lasts all day. We avoid it by habit. The mash tun answers the crack with steam. A false bottom waits under sparge arms. We run in liquor water, the right side of hot and mashing with the rake. Sweep after sweep until grain and water agree to be one thing, rest. We draw a first run of work to a picture and hold it up. It runs clear enough to read the chalk on the post through it. We pour it back vol off and draw again. Clarity is not an opinion, it is a practice. This is the anchor line. We are at the mash tun lip, watching work turn from grain soup to a patient, shining thread, lamp, scales, key. Our 3 quiet things stay where the hands expect them. If your head nods, let it, the sparge arms will move on gauge alone. We open the sparge, a ring of hold pipes that lays hot liquor on the grain bed like rain that never learned to hurry. We keep the head to fingers above the grain. The outflow meets a beam scale that checks barrels by weight and the sight glass that tells the truth to eyes without taste. Numbers go in 3 places, a slate by the ton, the book on the bench, a memory that forgives nothing during the boil. The copper kettle waits on its brick cradle. We charge it with sweet wort and fire under with coal measured on the stout scale. The fire door closes to a line, the draft slides to a mark. A copper manway sits fast by clamps that learn their angle before we were born. Steam takes the roof in a calm sheet. When the first rise shows a foam line, the hot break, we skim once with a wooden blade and sweep the foam to a slop bucket that will be animal feed by sundown. Hops live in bales under a cooler loft. We cut the hoop, lift a leaf, and smell resin that suggests meadow without trying to be poetry. A small pond scaleways charges in cotton bags. Bittering at the start, flavor halfway, comfort at the end. The pointer tells the truth, we write the grams and the times. The kettle takes the first sack. A wicker basket holds the next. We do not drop sacks, we lower them, and let the boil teach them without splash. This is the one soft image we keep. Copper light walks the belly of the kettle and folds into the steam, coin pressed into warm bread. Then we return to rakes, scales, and clamps. We check gravity with a saccharometer, a hydrometer on the boiling scale. A cylinder of wort sits in a wooden stand. The glass floats and settles. We read the line at the meniscus. We write the number in the kettle book and on the slate. The two must agree, and usually do. Temperature correction hides in the margin. We let it sit, because years taught a hand to add in the head without waking anyone. This is the anchor. We are at the hydrometer stand. The lamp making the stem easy to read. The cellar key hanging on the nail beside the coolship hatch. If your eyes close for a count of 10, the stem will not drown. At flame out we carry the copper to stillness and lift the hatch to the coolship, the shallow pan in the loft. Louvers open with an iron key on a bar so the night air can work. We draw off hot wort in a sheet, no deeper than a finger, and watch steam move like a cloth pressed and lifted over and over. The coolship knows the difference between night and day, so do we. A rake moves the surface once, enough to keep heat honest, but not enough to invite words into the room. Downstairs, yeast sleeps in a wooden balm tub under a cloth that knows not to sag. We pitch when the wort is the side of cool. We trust a way of describing degrees that a book would argue with and a cellar would forgive. The yeast wakes without greeting. A head forms. A pencil draws a time and a line in the ferment book. This is the anchor line. We are at the fermenter lip. There is a place on the floorboards where a foot almost always stands. It is polished by work, not pride. The lamp keeps its pull. The small beam scale for a half kilogram charges sits zeroed. The cellar key waits. We set a bung in each cask and a spile in each bung. The spile breathes. The cask learns a little song without a tune, only bubbles marking hours. On the head we chalk the gravity and the date. Chalk does not lie, because it has no time to develop a style. A wash brush lives in a bucket. The bucket holes lie, and a habit of keeping edges clean. Ice waits in the cave because winter gave it. Blocks lie in a trench lined with sawdust that remembers last January and the one before. A scale hangs from a beam to portion ice by weight into bins near the lagering vault. We break one block with an iron wedge and feed the trench again. Cold is a tool, we spend it like men who know what spring does to beer. The cellar lock takes the long key again. The vault door opens to a smell of pitch and cool stone. We roll casks in on boards laid like a runway. A bung wrench, a key in the mouth of any brewer, sits where the hand expects. Teeth worn to exactly the width of our bungs, not the neighbours. We tighten till the staves know they are home and stop before they learn to complain. This is the anchor. We are at the vault door. Lamp high, scales back, key in the palm. If sleep leans at your shoulder, let it. The casks will finish their small talk without supervision. We draw a sample from the running board, cloudy but honest, and note the change. Once a day, the saccharometer reads lower. Once a week, a rack of bottles gets a fill to let us see through what the cask hides. We never trap yeast under wire in anger, we give it room and a day. The small book shows steps, the mouth reminds us if a step grew careless. Upstairs the copper gets its wash, hot liquor, caustic, a brush that looks like a nest of reeds and knows its job. We open the manway and test the rivet lines with a finger grit would tell on us, and none does. The hop back empties to the yard. Spent hops steam on a board and wait for the farmer, who knows they are as good as a bit of hay to a certain kind of cow. This is the stack of pitch. A cauldron warms it, a mop on a handle paints cask interiors, so resin keeps beer apart from wood without building a wall. We weigh pitch on the pond scale, so a cask does not gain a taste we did not intend. The pointer twitches and rests. The floor under the pitch pot carries 3 rings, the color of cured amber. They are months old, they will be years old, they are the room's quiet calendar. We clean the mash tun. The manhole opens, a shovel lifts the spent grain in neat cuts, each the length of a breath. The louter screen gets a rinse, the sparge arms a brush. A boy pulls the wedge from the wedge gate and pockets it. Because if a wedge learns to walk, a gate learns to fall. The wedge goes back on its hook when his pocket forgets it. Hooks are better than pockets for things that need to be where the next hand expects. This is the anchor line. We are at the wedge hook and the manhole. Lamp steady. Small scale empty. Cellar key on nail. If you have slept through the heat, you have not missed the work. It repeats more kindly than speech. We weigh hops for tomorrow and tie them in new cloth. We test the ferment head with a skimmer and leave it. We chalk a line through a number on the kettle slate because the boil did not ask for a 3rd sack. Chalk forgives change, ink waits to be sure. The bell of the town marks the hour inside. The brewhouse does not jump. The clerk enters with his book for excise. He stands at the bench, not the kettle, and writes gallons and dates and gravity that will be taxed tomorrow and history later. He weighs his pen on the small scale as a joke and smiles when the rider sits at 1 gram. We let the joke stand. The book closes and goes back into his bag, which locks with a key that resembles every other key in the building. And yet nobody confuses them because nails and habits keep houses as much as locks do. This is the courtship again at evening. Louvers narrow air holes, less hairy surface, skin shrugs and turns. We lower the drain plate, the wort flows to the fermenter in a sheet thinner than a book. Yeast steps forward without ceremony. Tomorrow we will listen for the first breath. Tonight we square lids and lean a block against a wheel that likes to learn forward at the wrong time. Down in the logger vault, rows of casks sit belly to belly on cribbing laid true. A chalk cross marks the ones that finish this week, a dot marks the ones that rest longer. A thermometer on a strip of tin hangs at eye level, where no breath warms it by accident. We read, record, and replace. The pen scratches one short line, the line is enough. We lock the vault and test the handle. The key turns, the tongue withdraws, the door returns to a wall. We hang the key with the bow to the left, teeth to the right. Habit that belongs to this building and no other. This is the last hot thing, washing bottles for the small trade that wants cork and wire instead of a tap key. Water, steam, caustic, a rack drains a glass, holds itself to light and forgives the world because its lip is whole and its belly clear. We weigh corks on the little balance because a cork to light learns to leak. The pointer tells us which to choose. We choose and stop when the number matches the order. We sweep grain dust into a bin for the pigs. We scrub the lip of the mash tun with a brush that belongs to nothing else. We wipe the slate and leave only the hop charges for tomorrow. The hydrometer cylinder tilts to dry. The copper stays warm with its own memory and then cools. The lamp lowers to a smaller circle. The cellar key returns to its nail. The scales rest at 0. The room breathes steam out, cold in, and keeps its promises. If sleep arrives, let it. Work becomes beer whether we watch or not. Morning will find the mash paddle on its peg. The book turned to a clean line, the ice beam with its trench trimmed. The louvers knowing their angle, and the lamp, the scales, and the key where a hand expects them. The 12th part. Meissen, Saxony, 18th century. Before dawn, a courtyard holds the night like cool porcelain. We lift the bar, turn the workshop key a quarter, and set a lamp behind its horn shade, so the wedging bench keeps a steady oval of light. A jar of clean water waits. To canvas aprons hang straight. Clay sleeps under damp cloth in a wooden trough. This is the clay bench. Kale in white, fine. Dry meats feldspathic stone ground to meal. We weigh both on a beam scale, whose knife edges are honest and cool. The pan takes kale in, the rider walks the beam. The pointer pauses up the line we trust. The feldspar follows. We write the figures in a narrow book, then sift both into the trough. Water goes in with a steady hand. A wooden pug stick turns, lifts, unfolds. The mass learns to be one material that bends without tearing and yields without sulking. This is the anchor line. We are at the clay bench. Lamp steady. Beam at 0. Key back on its nail. If drowsiness leans at your shoulder, let it. The clay will keep its center while you rest. We wire a block and drop it on the wedging board. Ram's head wedges press. Fold. Turn. Set the platelets in a kind direction. Air leaves in quiet size. The board surface is gypsum. It draws water just enough, not more. A hand knows when the clay stops feeling like paste and starts feeling like habit. We cut the block into loaves and wrap each in damp cloth, for the wheel and for the mold. This is the throwing room. The wheel's stone flywheel waits below the treadle sits where a foot expects it. The head is clean and level. We center a loaf by palm and heel. The clay rises, lowers, rises again, until it forgets to fight. The first pull thins a wall, the second sets a shoulder. A rib smooths the inside, to fingers find the rim and teach it to behave. We cut the pot free with a wire and set it on a board. 10 pots make a board, 6 boards make a morning. The wheel keeps a small sound, leather on wood, water with its own small promise. This is the anchor line. We are at the wheel head. The lamp holds its oval on the clay. If your eyes close for 3 breaths, the rim will not wander. In the moulding room, plaster sits in quiet shapes on shelves, cups, spouts, handles, flowers that never needed rain. We lay a thin ribbon of clay on a sprig mould and press with a thumb. The mould gives back a leaf that looks like patience. A handle arm gets its turn. Clay rolled to a rod, flattened with a baton, laid into the mould, and trimmed at both ends with a square, clean knife. The pieces sleep under damp cloth until they admit the score or take slip. This is the slip bench. A pan of white slip liquid clay screened fine weights with a ladle. We weigh colorants in leaf weights for later decoration. Cobalt for a blue that speaks without shouting, iron red with a modest temper, manganese for a line that does not forget itself. Each weight returns to its felt-lined bed. The pointer rests where it began. The book gets small numbers and smaller words. Blue 0.2, red 0.1, bind with gum. It does not need a speech. We turn leather hard pieces on a chuck. The foot learns to be round and true, the wool learns to be even, where the first pull lied. A turning tool whispers, shaving thin spirals that slide off the board like quiet pairings. A ring of scrap grows around the wheel post. We gather it in a pan for slaking and future work. No curl goes to waste until it has taught what it knows. This is the anchor. We are at the turning chuck. The lamp sips oil, the scale sleeps, the key minds its nail. If sleep arrived a page ago, the foot still sits level. In the attaching hour, the score and slip habit rules. A cup meets its handle. Scores cross slip bridges pressure sets with 2 fingers under breath. A sprigged leaf meets a body line, a thumb supports from within, a stick couples from without. A fine brush drinks water and smooths the seam until it forgets it was born apart. We set the piece on a lat to dry. A row of handles points one way, like a small procession with no parade. This is the drying press. Boards ride rails in the warmest corner, spaced so air walks between them. A window is pegged open the width of 2 fingers. A hygrometer does not live here, the back of a hand does. When clay turns from dark to light, it remembers itself as powder. We do not ask that only for leather, and then bone dry. A soft pencil on a board edge says the hour when a hand touched the base and found no give. We load saggers. Saggers are lidded clay boxes that keep flame from teaching a piece to many lessons at once. A setter sprinkles grog on sagger bottoms and lays cups in a circle, rims not kissing. A spacer sits between layers. The lid meets the rim with a string of slip and a twist. The kiln room smells of old heat and clean ash. The tower of saggers grows like a measured wall. This is the kiln mouth. A bottle kill shows its crown through a low arch, the fire mouth's weight, brick and iron. We lift the iron latch, the kiln's only key, and set it back so it will not forget. Inside, a setter builds a pack with bats and props. A spy hole shows nothing yet. A parametric cone soft clay tapered to a promise leans in a holder where a future hour will teach it to bow. We push the last sagger home and lay bricks in the wicket. The door becomes a wall. A line of clay grouts the joints. The kiln frowns and then forgets us. This is the anchor line. We are at the wicket. Lamp to the side. Scale near the pigments. Key back on its nail. If your head drifts, it is permitted. Fire moves at its own temper. We set the first fire with clean smalls, dry billets. No gush, no show. Draft opens a hands with dampers begin, where practice remembers. The flues wake, the crown takes a breath. No one can see, but everyone knows. The fire walks on great bars, flame licks the bags, the kiln learns awake without raising its voice. We mark the time and the weather in the firing book. In the paint room, bisque from last week waits, white that rings like a small bell when tapped. We wipe each piece with a damp cloth to lift dust. A pencil plans a line, a brush carries cobalt in water with a ribbon of gum. Cobalt's underglaze needs no varnish, it wants a steady hand and no flourish. A loop, a leaf, a quiet stem the brush lifts and breathes as if it belongs more to breath than to ink. On a plate rim, a scale of dots 1, 2, 3 repeats like a tune that never needed to be sung. This is the balance again. Stains and fluxes weigh on tin pans. A frick ground glass goes in the smallest measure, a pinch of clay to keep paint from running, a touch of sugar to help the line sit. The rider moves not more than a nail's breadth. The book writes, blue under, red over. Gilding later flux 0.05 to 1. The figures read like a person who slept well. We test glaze. A stoneware jar holds a white that will become glass when the kiln keeps its part. We dip a shard, count to 3, and lift. Drips learn to be lines, lines learn to be surface. A glaze hydrometer floats in the jar, its stem marks where thickness tells truth. We stir and measure again, we adjust with water, not hope. The shard dries like a promise someone will keep. This is the anchor. We are at the glaze jar. Lamp small balance at rest key, where any hand can find it without looking. If your eyes close, the hydrometer will not drown. Cones lean in their places. One that bows when heat equals this, another for that. We push small witness tiles into the pack through a peephole with a hooked iron. The setter wipes sweat with a sleeve before it learns to be a drip. A stoker lays billets with the grain facing the fire. He does not shove, he feeds. The door shuts with a bar that needs no speech. A watch sits on the post and minds itself. This is the one image we keep for the chapter. Heat tremor above the kiln makes the rafters waver like a line drawn on water by a slow finger. Then return to straight when the eye blinks, then we go back to cones, bats, and books. We fire through 3 regions. Water leaves, organics go to smoke, the clay forgets it was 1,000 plates and remembers it is 1. Then sinter, edgy share, pores narrow, then clear sound. The body clenches like a fist that does not harm, only holds. We listen with a rod against the crown, its note rises from dull to modest spell. Cones bend a mild bow, then a knee. A pencil makes marks in the margin. The nightman notes wind and wood. This is the anchor line. We are at the firing bench. The lamp has a blue bead now, small and patient. The scales are asleep. The key to the pigment cupboard hangs on its little hook. If sleep arrives, let it. The kiln needs someone to not talk to it. Morning opens in the loft with a door that does not creak because a man oiled it last week without waiting to be asked. The kiln calls. We do not hurry it. The wicket bricks come out when a hand on a brick says warm not hot. The pack shows at last. Saggers soot bloomed, lids still seated. We prize one with an iron that learned where to go. Inside, white cups with blue lines that did not run. One shows a kiss of sagger, that one goes to the shelf that says second, not waste. Waste becomes grog, grog becomes floors, nothing scalds. This is the sorting table. A beam scale weighs a dozen cups. As a unit, the pointer rests where dozens should. A touchstone highlights pits, a wax pencil marks tiny floors that the gilders will work around. A stamp sits face up on felt, cross swords in a small circle. A boy heats a ceiling wax bead and touches the foot of a wrapped second, the factory's quiet way to tell a shop what it is without teaching the cup to blush. We gild borders. Gold comes as leaf and as powder ground with mercury to a paste that will flash to bright when it sees heat again. We weigh the powder on the leaf scale. It holds numbers like whispers. A brush of squirrel hair lays a border, a burnisher of agate will later make it mirror without shouting. We breathe away from the gold, so a sigh will not move a line. A pad under the wrist keeps the hand even and makes ours feel smaller. This is the anchor. We are at the gilding bench. Lamp steady scales, telling small truths key to the safe where gold sleeps return to the accountant's pocket. If your head dips, the paste will not dry any faster or slower for it. In the overglaze killer small muffle box fired gentle colors wake to their intended self. Iron becomes red brown copper soft green cobalt stays minimal and loyal. We watch cones that live half their life and die right on time. A door key here is only an iron haspit's bow nose a thumb that did not change since winter. We open when patience meets finger test and cone memory. We pack finished pieces in straw on wooden partitions. Each partition says, "No quarrel" in the way its edges smooth splinters. Labels carry numbers written once here and once in the book. A wafer of wax takes a small stamp key and scales. Same mark the mill, and the post new in other towns. The emblem is ours, not because we own the idea, but because a room without an emblem forgets how to be humble. This is the one soft metaphor we allow ourselves. The first touch of light on a white plate is like frost that learn not to bite. Then we return to knives, cords, and ledger lines. We clean brushes with patience and clear water, not spirits. Spirits swell hair and teach it to lie. We set them flat, not upright, so water cannot go where glue should live. We wipe the balance pans with the soft cloth that only ever sees chalk and pigment, never oil. We fold the cloth neatly. The cloth does not care. We do it anyway. This is the book for shapes and measures. Plate diameters in whole and half lines, cup heights and foot widths. If a handle droops by a line, we shave the mold by a line. If a lid lifts its nose when cooling, we teach the flange a gentler taper. The book speaks in ordinary words. It forgives commas. It loves numbers that come back the next day with the same face. An inspector steps in. He's not a storm. He's a man with a straight edge and a calm mouth. He checks rims on a ring, feet in a groove, lids to mates. He weighs a cup in his palm, a small apple, and nods when it says enough. He writes a small number on a slate. We copy it to the book. He warms his hands over the kiln that has become a stove now and speaks one sentence about the weather, which has the decency to be weather. This is the anchor line. We are at the shipping bench. Lamp small scales reading dozens key to the gate on a nail by the door, where any hand can see it. If sleep has settled, keep it. The straw will keep its peace without you. We close the pigment cupboard with its small key and put the key in the drawer that minds keys. Bow to the left, teeth to the right, because that is this room's habit. We return the hydrometer to its rack. We set the cones in their box and write the last bending for this firing in the margin. We sweep the wheel head. We brush the wedging board. We cover the clay that remains with a damp cloth that does not try to make a point. At the door we look once into the kiln mouth. Heat lives as memory now. The bar lifts and settles without a clack. The wicket bricks stacked beside the arch admit with their chipped corners that they have known 100 fires and 100 more, and none was in a hurry. The courtyard learns light and shows frost that does not complain. The key meets the door. It turns with the same quarter turn that began the day. If sleep arrives, let it. White clay will wait in dark cloth. The brush will keep its line. The kiln will cool at the pace of the wall. Morning will find lamp, scales, and key where a hand expects them. The 13th part. Mosel terraces, late 19th century. Dawn under a cool slate slope. We lift the latch of a vineyard hut, turn the cellar key once, and set a lamp behind its horn shade, so the press floor holds a quiet oval of light. Outside, the river lies long and grey inside. Baskets, knives, and a beam scale wait without hurry. This is the picking row at first light. Slate holds last night's warmth. Flat shards underfoot. Low walls that keep a pocket of air from running away. Shears open and close with a sound like a small hinge. We set baskets wicker with a strap every 10 paces. A hand tests a bunch at the shoulder berries give with a clean pop. MOG material other than grapes does not belong. A thumb flicks leaf and wing to the ground. The slope asks 4 feet to think they do. We move one terrace at a time. Ladders set into the wool holder rung that knows each boot. This is the anchor line. We are at the rowware slate. Knives and baskets make a rhythm. The lamp, the scales, and the key are home below, keeping their places. If drowsiness turns your head, keep it vines do not change speed for witnesses. At the path, a barrow waits with its nose toward the press house. We weigh the first basket at a beam or a post basket on the left, brass on the right, rider to the mark. The pointer bows, then returns. Chalk on a slate says the row and the weight. The slate lives on a nail. The nail asks for no thanks. A boy empties the basket into a tub, taps the rim twice to settle berries, and sets the empty back by the ladder. A thin line of juice on the staves says a bunch tried to hurry. It did not win. By mid-morning the tubs ride a small cart to the house. The track curves above the river. A chain keeps the cart from teaching the slope a lesson. At the press floor we lay planks over the drain and carry tubs to the hopper. Unstemmed bunches fall with a rustle. A wooden roller breaks berries without chewing stems. The must runs to a sump. Must is grape juice with skins and seeds, and from there to a shallow vat. A sieve stops what the roller forgot to spare. We do not stir. We let the first weight carry the skins to their own corner. This is the must scale. A glass hydrometer, oat scale sugar by degrees above water. 1 degree 1 gram per liter floats in a cylinder. We lower it and wait for the stem to still. We read the meniscus at the right eye. The number meets the page, date, row, degree, hour. We test again in another tub to keep the day honest. A pencil line joins both to a short remark about weather. The book prefers remarks that would not wake anyone. We wash the pressed cheeks and set the basket staves and hoops around a drain on its sole. Planks and followers lie ready. We fill the basket, lay the cap, and turn the screw. A wooden bar reads our shoulder and answers with weight. Juice runs steady. A shallow channel carries it to a clean vat. We turn until the press says enough, by slowing and by tone. We wait. We turn again to hand's breadth. We open. We fork the cake once and turn it. We press again. No speeches. Pressing is questions and short answers. This is the anchor. We stand at the press with lamp, scales, and key within reach. The lamp's circle holds the spout bright. The beam scale rests at 0. The key lies on its nail. Bow to the left, teeth to the right. If sleep rounds your breath, give it space. The screw will stop where it should. A small sulfur candle waits in a tin beside bung staves. Sulfur burned in an empty cask keeps it clean of wildlife. The thread hangs from a wire on a bung. We weigh sulfur on a pond scale grams that do not enjoy guessing and tie the thread to a wire with a flat knot. We light, lower, and seat the bung lightly with a mallet. Smoke walks the inside, then rests. We lift, air, and roll. The cask reads ready because it smells like nothing. The cellar door turns on the long key. Cool steps hold the night. On the left, Feuder casks. A Feuder is a big Mosel cask. Near 1,000 liters lie on their cradles on the right. Half-size pieces sit in a tidy row. Chalk on each head records year and parcel. A dot means young. A line means resting. A cross means ready to rack. We set the lamp in a glass-fronted niche, so flame minds air and not a sleeve. The light makes a shallow oval on pitch and oak. The river makes its own low answer in the stones. We lower the first must-buy hose from the floor above. A tin funnel at the crow's hole speaks a thin sound, and then quiet as liquid meets wood. The pipe's leather collar loves a steady hand. We give it one. We stop before the bung swallows. Air must have room. A bung goes in without asking for a hammer's pride. We set the spile, a small wooden vent where the bung can breathe. A slate on the floor keeps drips from teaching boards to go soft. This is the anchor line. We are at the Feuder head, chalk and bung in reach. The lamp shows a circle a meter across. The must throws a slow bubble. If sleep has stepped closer, it is welcome. Yeast wakes by its own clock. We measure again at the vat. The hydrometer reads a line lower as skins give their sugar. We write it, not to whirring, just to anchor. The tub 4 stems stands in the corner. Stems will dry for winter kindling, or go to compost for a slope that thanks quiet gifts. The cake from the press will go to the pumice still next week. Another kind of work will manage that, with a different book that keeps the same style of numbers. Afternoon runs the press steady. Must flows in a clean line. We skim foam once with a flat board and wash the board before it forgets what clean feels like. The drain carries away what we do not need. Skins that could stain, seeds that could teach bitter, where we did not ask for it. The vat stands as high as a hand and as wide as a bed. We keep its rim wiped because a dry rim is a good habit. This is the fining shelf. Isinglass fish collagen looks like thin, dried ribbons. It becomes a fining that clears wine later by gathering haze. We weigh it on a small balance, a gram per bucket for trials, more 4 casks when trials not. The pointer settles, the book receives the number. We write not today and return the packet to its jar. Today will clear by time and gravity. We choose the job that asks least for our voice. A cooper checks a hoop on a test cask. He lifts the dog into a hold, sets his driver, and gives 3 even blows. The hoop walks down a finger. He tests the seam with water from a dipper. No dark line travels. He rubs pitch with a warm palm to smooth the nick. The cask says thank you by doing nothing at all. This is the one image we keep for the chapter. Sun flickers on the river through the cellar door's small window and throws a moving coin on the nearest cask. The coin slides a hand's width and fades. Then we go back to chalk, spiles, and scales. Light falls, work learns the cellar. We hang a cloth over the hydrometer cylinder and lay the glass in its rack, not upright where a drop could remember. We wash the funnel. We hang the hose where no heel can make it a flat memory. The press screw gets a smear of tallow. The basket staves get a rinse. Planks stand to dry against a wall that forgives. This is the ledger at the cellar table. It shows 3 columns: must degree, vat count, cask number. A margin carries a mark for sulfur and another for racking. We set a small weight on the page as a paper waiter stone from the slope with a vein of white that runs quiet. The quill leaves lines that do not hook or flourish. They do not need to persuade anyone to sleep. They simply let sleep arrive. We cut a wedge from a bung to turn a free vent for the first night. The vent will spit a little foam. We set a rag, clean and folded, under the bung. The rag will tell us tomorrow who wanted to talk. We trim nothing yet. The cellar does not like uninvited cleverness. This is the anchor. Lamp on its nail, small balance for sulfur weights, long key for the door. If your eyes close here, the casks will not mind. Yeast prefers quiet witnesses. Morning to morning we listen. Ferment wakes with a small hiss at each spile. A hand on the cask head hears it through wood. A chalk line marks a day. We cap vents and set a blind bung. We take a sample up the running board, fill the cylinder, float the hydrometer and read lower. We note the move, we lean the board again. We move air out with a soft blow at the crow's hole when a cask sulks. It learns to settle. We do not scold. We mark the racking day. A siphon hose reaches from above the lees of fine sediment to the clean cask beside it. We pull with a mouth and stop when the charm begins. The stream clears. We watch colour through a held glass. Then we let the hose go until the shadow near the lees deepens. We stop while clear is still true. The lees go to a jar that waits on a shelf. A measure of them, dried, will polish the next stills run. Nothing asks for verse. This is the anchor line. We are at the racking board. A lamp lives above a pond scale, holds small weights. The key sits on its nail. Bow left, teeth right. If sleep has laid a hand on your shoulder, let it, the hose will find its own end. A trader comes to taste from the sample cask. He brings his own small glass. He does not argue degrees. He listens to the cellar, breathes on the rim, and nods once. He writes a figure in his book. We write a line in ours. Both books tell the same small truth. We do not push his pen. He leaves a note for spring delivery with a polite weight on it. We turn the note into a line in a ledger, nothing more. We mend a ladder rung with a piece of ash that was waiting for the job. 2 pegs, a square-shouldered hole, a com tap, and the rung returns to the rhythm of feet. The wall keeps the ladder where it was. A nail catches its shoulder. It does not wander in wind. On days when fog sits low, we close the river door and work the vent at the gable by a hand's breadth. On dry days, we let both sit open and talk quietly to one another across the casks. A thermometer on the wall reads in degrees. A farmer would call weeds and shirts. We write the figure and ask no speeches from it. It is better as an anchor than as a leader. This is the fining bench again. Today we mix on a trial glass, jar, water, isinglass softened, a drop of acid from a small bottle with a glass rod swirl, pour and wait. In half an hour the sample shows a cloud, and then a clear cap. We write a number. Tomorrow we will scale it. We weigh the packet for a cask on the pan scale. The pointer climbs and rests. We note. We stop. The clear comes when it comes. We prefer to be on time rather than early. A courier from the court comes with a seal book for the vintage stamp. We set the stamping red wax on a docket for the town. Nothing like a coat of arms, only a clean circle with a key, and to scales. The wax calls. The docket finds the book. The book finds a shelf that holds the others like rungs on a ladder. The shelf leans onto stones that learn to be patient under load. This is the one soft line we allow. Tartrate crystals in a cask look like frost that forgot to melt, clinging to a stave in quiet teeth. Then we return to taps, wedges, and the sop of a rag. We weigh bentonite in a later year clay that helps a wine sit clear, but for today, we prefer patience and a cold cellar. We mark a date, we roll a cask by a quarter to move a shadow line where the bung dries. We grease a bung lightly with tallow so it will not teach trouble. We touch each hoop with a knuckle iron answers into notes, held, not held. All are held. This is the anchor, lamp, scales, key hour 3 again made small by casks that mine their sleep. If your head dips here, it is proper the river below the door does the same thing 2 hills all day. In the yard, slate dust lives in a pile 4 paths. We spread a barrow of it near the press to keep feet honest. The handle on the barrow learned the taste of rope last year, the rope still holds. A cart arrives with hoops. We weigh a bundle on the bridge scale and write the number on a chalkboard. The bridge scale's pointer rests at 0 when the cart leaves. 0 is a good place for a pointer to practice. We tidy. Press screw to tallow. Basket staves rinsed. Hose hung. Hydrometer dry. Slate wiped. Ledger closed. Lamp turned down to a bead, no larger than a seed. The cellar door learns the key again. The tongue slides, the bow turns. The key returns to the nail. The nail returns to the board. The board returns to the wall, that returns to stone, that returns to river. If sleep arrives, let it. Yeast will count where you stopped. Morning will find the press dry, the chalk legible, the bung true, and the lamp, the scales, and the key where a hand expects them. The 14th part. Berlin, early 19th century. The river is still a darker band beyond the yard, and frost has made the flagstones look like paper rubbed with chalk. We lift the side door bar, turn the Mintrum key a quarter, and set a lamp under its horn shade, so the assay bench holds a calm oval of light. Brass shines where cloth has been kind. Steel keeps its grey. This is the planchette room at first light. Ingots of silver narrow. Even bars from yesterday's pour rest on a timber table lined with linen. We weigh one on a stout beam to note its birth weight. The rider walks. The pointer bows and returns. The ingot is not a promise yet. It is only material that learned a shape. To men feed the bar into the rolling mill. The mill answers in one slow sentence, tooth and tooth, until the bar discovers it could be a strip. The strip passes a candle's flame and shows no wave. If it did, we would send it back. It does not. It lies even on the board, a ribbon that will meet circles later. This is the anchor line. We are at the rolling mill, and the stout scale the lamp keeps its shallow circle. The long mint key lives on its nail. If your breathing has lengthened, keep it. The strip will not curl for want of witnesses. We anneal the strip. A small furnace, brick and iron, holds dull heat. The strip goes in on a support, no kinks, no hurry. We watch the colour travel along it like evening on a wall, stop short of red, and let it rest. We quench it in a trough where water remembers to be still. The strip becomes a good listener. It will accept a punch without sulking. We dry it on a frame of wires, steam rises, and forgets it was wet. At the blanking press, the punch speaks the language of circles. The handle moves, the die bites, bright discs fall into a bin lined with cloth. Scrap lace, what the strip becomes between circles goes to a crate for melting. We weigh a handful of blanks on the small beam. To light goes left. to heavy right most are true and sit in the center dish like little moons. A girl files the slightest proud edge from nose a breath to heavy, her stroke even, dust caught on wax cloth. We test again. Metal yields to numbers that do not change their mind. This is the anchor. We are at the small beam balance and the filing board. The lamp holds its oval. The key to the furnace door hangs near the lintel. Bow to the left, teeth to the right. If sleep leans closer, let it, the pointer will hold your place. Blanks go to the soft drum with clean sand. The drum turns, edges lose burr without losing shape. Just enough never to the point where a circle forgets its diameter. We sieve, rinse, and dry on warming plates. Hands know to move slowly around heat plates, speak in low syllables into the air. We raise rims on an upsetting mill. To steel rails, set close, teach a blank to lift its edge. The mill hums, not proud, not shy. A rim makes a coin kinder to fingers, and less likely to wear away its face. We weigh a tray after upsetting, just to see who changed. The tray says, no one in numbers, which is the best answer. This is the die bench. A block holds a steel cylinder, the die face, engraved with a hub that brought a design in one honest press yesterday, sits under a lamp. We blacken the face and kiss it with a file to see high spots. We stone once, draw a line in the book, and pass the die to the hardening man. He brings it back with his name in the margin and a note, color to straw quenched in clean oil. A die that learned temper will forget tantrum. The screw press stands like a patient tree, arms out, threads clean. We climb to steps and turn the fly one full sweep to test the fall. The slide meets the bolster with a kiss, not a blow. The collar in the bed will give edges their reeds fine, even teeth that keep confidence in the pocket. We oil the threads with a brush and a whisper. Oil that speaks loud is oil that invites dust. This is the anchor line. We are at the screw press with blank trays to the left, struck coins dish to the right, lamp, scales, key. The three quiet things keep to their marks. If your eyes close for a count, the fly will not fall without a hand. At the assay bench, a fine balance sleeps under a glass. We tilt the cover, set a test blank on one pan, and a tiny rider on the arm. We test in air and again in water to read the specific gravity. The numbers say what a mouth would call right. A touch of nitric wakes a whisper of base metal. It exists today, it stays quiet. The book receives a line. The balance returns to zero and does not think itself important. We letter edges where law asks wording, or we read them where silence is enough. The edge lettering mill takes a ring with letters cut backward. The blank rolls between ring and wheel, comes out with a line a person can read with a thumb. We do not read the line out loud. It is not for speech, it is for proof against shaving. This is the striking hour. A feeder lays a blank in the collar. The pressman eases the fly into its swing. The slide falls, silver moves like dough taught its lines. The collar lifts, the coin jumps and rests. The feeder's next hand is already there. We strike twice by habit light, then full because the slow fall finds detail, and the second makes it stand. A tray fills with faces that did not exist 10 breaths ago. We weigh 10 at once. The beam tells us the work is honest. We keep one small image for the chapter. On the finished face the light crosses fine hairlines and shallow relief like a breeze combing grass, moving and then forgetting to be seen. Then we return to oil, threads and numbers. In the washing room, new coins sit in warm soapy water. Then in a rinse with a thread of ammonia that leaves no film. They dry on flannel. We watch for milkiness and find none. The counting board weights a rectangle with lanes that hold 20s. A palm moves coins into lanes, and a whisper of sound stands where clatter might live elsewhere. Fingers learn to stop at 20 without thinking. The board's end meets a bag mouth propped open by a ring. Coins slide, breathe once, and sleep. This is the anchor. We are at the counting board and the bag scale. The bag hook holds a cloth sack with its seam straight. We weigh the bag filled. The pointer finds the number that matches count plus cloth. A tag card in tin names the value and the room. A wax seal closes the knot. The die in the seal carries, as so many rooms in this country prefer, a key and a pair of scales. The seal is not vanity. It is a quiet quick sentence that help us trust. In the dye room, we retire an old face. Its field shows 1,000 small abraded choices. We stone the sharp, wipe oil, and write its end in the dye book. Retired dyes sleep with a slot punched through where their bite used to live. No dye goes wandering to teach anyone a trick. A drawer 4 keys the cupboard, the vault. The tool chest sits open while the dye book sits out and closes when the book closes. We move the keys back to their nail. Bow to the left, teeth to the right. Habit, not rule. This is the anchor line. We stand at the vault gate. Bars and a door that prefers one key, not any cousin. The key turns once and no more. Inside, shelves hold bags by tally. The air smells like cloth, not money. We set today's bags on their shelf. A ledger on a sloped desk shows how many, when, and who. Names are short and legible. To lines on this page, to lines on another page that lives in an office with less dust. The 2 lines agree. We break 4 tea that tastes of the tin it sleeps in, and bread that remembers steam. The press arms are still. The furnace whispers we do not mind. A man checks his hand's forebar by running his thumb slowly along his other palm, but comes off on a cloth if it is there. It is not. He puts the cloth back face down on the bench where he found it. That matters to him more than he could say. The engraver steps in quietly with a pipe clenched unlit. He sets a plaster model on a board soft shadows. No bravado, and places a steel punch beside it. He does not talk. He looks at the model until he remembers the lines, then looks at the steel until a line is possible. He cuts, then stones, then breathes. A thin line becomes a throat or a branch or a crown, depending on the day. His work is not faster than sleep, it is about as patient. This is the one sound we keep for the hour. The screw press slides meeting and parting to pieces of steel touching the word enough, then back to trays, collars, and bone-handled brushes. Afternoon brings trial pieces from a new melt. We weigh them to the grain on the fine balance. Note, and move to cupellation, where bone ash and the small furnace teach silver to show its soul. The cupel holds lead leaves, the bead brightens. We quench, weigh, and write. The numbers agree with morning. A clerk draws a short line under the entry and a dot in the margin. Dots say finished. Lines say finished. We are fond of both kinds of period. At the edge mill, a boy adjusts the pressure with a screw no larger than the knuckle of a finger. He turns until resistance says fair. He stops before pride says more. Reeds appear, even and small. We weigh a reed-laden coin against a smooth one to show the mill it stole nothing. It smiles by offering no difference. This is the anchor. We are at the lamp, the small balance, and the vault key. The lamp keeps its circle, the pointer rests at 0, the key lies where a hand expects, not where an eye must seek. If sleep arrives now, let it the reels, dies, and numbers will not walk. We sign for a handcart of scrap, lace from the blanking, file dust, and a box of old buttons someone thought were silver and were. We weigh the cart on the bridge scale in the yard. We write the number. We push the cart to the melt house. The melt key opens a low door. The furnace glows like a bank thought. We feed scrap, flux, and patience. The ingot molds are warm, not hot, and the tongs know them well. A new run calls while we sweep the floor. Dust that carries value meets a pan with a brush that does not try to be clever. We keep it all. Later it becomes a line in a different book. The press floor runs its last tray. A hand pats a coin's face lightly with the back of a nail to feel relief. Not too scuffed to learn by touch. The coin needs nothing. Into the dish it goes. Dishes become lanes. Lanes become bags. Bags meet the scale, the stamp, the ledger. This is the anchor line. At the counting board again, our 3 friends in view: lamp, scales, key and a head that knows the weight of a day. If your eyes have closed and opened, you missed nothing. The board still counts in 20s. We wipe and oil. The screw press threads drink just enough. The collar meets a cloth that left no lint this side of winter. Dies return to their drawers. The drawer returns to lock. The lock returns to nail. The key returns to its place. The anneal furnace door closes and the bar on its latch sits home without clack. A chalk on the wall says tomorrow's plan. strip to roll, dice to stone, a new collar to test, letters that look like a straight road. We move once more past the vault. The door is shut. The bar sits. The two of us read the bolt with a finger that trusts touch more than sight. We sign the book, lamplight on paper, making the ink look thicker than it is. We turn the Mintrun key a quarter. In the outer door it turns with the same polite stop it knew at dawn. For our single allowed image at the end, we let the last lamp glow pull the steel of the die as if a coin-sized moon had chosen to rest there. Then we let it go and return to small habits that never ask to be admired. If sleep arrives, let it. Metal keeps quiet appointments. Morning will find the strip on its peg, the balance at zero, the dies in their felt, the bags on their shelf, and the lamp, the scales, and the key where a hand expects them.